Chapter 8:15. What's that sound? Suddenly, someone listened attentively. Everyone immediately quieted down. There's no sound. Did you hear it wrong? No, listen. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was surprised because there was indeed a tinkling sound in their ears. It sounded like someone was flicking a metal object. At first, the sound was very soft, and the frequency was not high, but soon, the sound became louder, and the tinkling sound continued. Where did that sound come from? Everyone's expression changed. At this moment, it sounded like someone was making a noise in their ears, but they didn't notice anything. In the next moment, a voice full of heroic spirit suddenly sounded in their ears, causing everyone to be shocked. Ziwei Daoist Palace's Pang Huanin is here to visit. Please open the door. Ziwei Daoist Palace. Pang Huanin? The group of cultivators on duty was dumbfounded. They were naturally familiar with this name. After all, they were talking about this woman just now. But what made them feel incredulous was how this woman's voice could reach their ears. She was so close, but they didn't see a single person. In the crowd, a rather old cultivator on duty seemed to realize something and said, "Quickly open the sky reflection mirror and see what's happening outside." Elder Jiang means, "Don't talk nonsense. Quickly open the sky reflection mirror," the old man urged. Soon, a group of cultivators on duty activated the power of the sky reflection mirror. They all looked at the bronze mirror and couldn't help but be shocked. It was because the figures of several people were reflected in the mirror. The leader was a woman dressed in men's clothes. Her hands were behind her back, and she had a heroic aura. Even if they hadn't seen her before, they could confirm her identity at a glance. Pang Huanin, she's outside. While they were talking, Pang Huanin seemed to have noticed something. She looked up and met the eyes of the cultivators on duty. It was as if she was looking at them from a distance. Her sharp gaze made the group of cultivators take a few steps back. She can calculate the location of my Summer Mountain's door? Someone was so shocked that his face turned pale. The three great secret realms of the human clan drifted in the void. The elders of each clan had their own calculation methods. If they didn't know the method, it was impossible to calculate the corresponding position of the door at a certain time. Pang Yenin was waiting outside the secret realm. Obviously, she had a way to calculate the location of the door. This was simply unbelievable. What was even more shocking was, what method did she use to transmit her voice into the room? Quickly report this to the mountain chieftain. The old man surnamed Jiang hurriedly ordered. Someone immediately accepted the order and rushed towards Mount Meru. "Old Jiang, this woman is outside. What should we do now?" Elder Jiang said calmly, "What's there to be afraid of? Although she has calculated the location of the Shumi Mountain's door, she can't break in. It's just that this matter is of great importance, so it's best to let the mountain chieftain know about it as soon as possible." Only then did the group come back to their senses. That's right, if the door isn't open, Pang Huanin won't be able to barge in. What's there to be afraid of? Just as he breathed a sigh of relief, a strange spiritual power fluctuation suddenly appeared in the void in front of him. Then, a large golden light spread out, outlining the shape of a door. This. Old Jiang couldn't help but take a few steps back, his old face full of shock. He had just said that Pang Huanin wouldn't be able to enter Mount Meru, but as soon as he said that, the door showed signs of opening. What was certain was that the ones who opened the door were not the cultivators on duty. That Pang Huanin had somehow managed to open the door to Mount Meru by force. Old Jiang's heart was filled with horror. "Quickly close the door!" Someone shouted. Many cultivators on duty began to move in a hurry. If the door could be opened, it could also be closed. No matter what kind of method Pang Huanin used to do this, they couldn't let her in. If they let her in like this, it would be a dereliction of duty on the cultivators on duty. However, at this moment, a big hand reached out from the door of the Five Forces scripture and grabbed the edge of the door. The door was originally illusory and was formed by the convergence of spiritual power, but at this moment, it seemed to be a physical existence. Everyone's eyes were attracted by the big hand, and a sense of horror arose in the depths of their hearts. It was as if it wasn't a human hand that grabbed the edge of the door, but the sharp claws of a ferocious beast. And from that door, a ferocious beast was about to step out. The big hand that grabbed the edge of the door exerted force, and a figure rushed out from the door and stood in front of it, looking like a door god. Everyone looked up and saw that the person who rushed in was a young man in his 20s. His clothes were ragged, and he stood there covered in blood. Through the gaps in his torn clothes, the wounds on his body were faintly visible. Rebirth, the great wave fighting era, those were not traces left behind by a great battle, but the price of being cut by the void when the door was not completely stabilized. However, this person's expression did not change. He stood there quietly with his eyes slightly lowered, and the black hair on his forehead cast a thick shadow over his eyes, making it impossible for others to see his expression clearly. He held the long force of the 5 forces scripture in his hand, and his 5 fingers gently grasped the handle. No one dared to make any moves because this person appeared. Everybody could feel that those who had a relationship with him were certain of their own safety. Any unusual movement could possibly lead to an attack from the enemy's side. The atmosphere instantly became tense, and some cultivators were so nervous that their foreheads were sweating. The golden door quickly stabilized, and another figure walked out from the door. The spiritual power of the body-strengthening body surged, and a dazzling light bloomed as if it was resisting something. It was Pang Huanin. After the light around her disappeared, everyone realized that she did not enter alone, but was followed by an old man. After entering Mount Meru, she smiled and looked at Elder Jiang and the others, who were facing a great enemy but did not dare to act rashly. "Thank you for your trouble." The faces of all the cultivators on duty twitched. "What trouble? How could it be trouble? You are clearly breaking in. Don't make it sound like we opened the door for you." This was the first time they realized that the master of the Ziwei Taoist palace had the ability to turn black into white. She turned her head and looked at Lu Yi, who was the first to rush in. She frowned and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" It was not easy to open someone's door by force, and they would definitely find a way to resist. If that was the case, it would only alert the enemy. Therefore, they could not delay after the door was opened. One person had to go first to restrain the cultivators on duty. However, passing through before the door was completely stabilized was accompanied by a great risk. The wounds on Lu Ye's body were the price of this trip. This forced entry was a little different from the last time when they left the Silver Snake Valley. Although the door in the Silver Snake Valley was not completely stabilized last time, it was much better than this time. After all, the Silver Snake Valley had been preparing for a long time. Therefore, when Lu Yi and Ing Wuji left through the door, they were at most a little dizzy, but not injured. However, the injuries on his body at this moment could be considered a serious injury to any other cultivator. What surprised Pang Huanin was that Lu Ye's aura did not show any signs of weakening, as if those injuries did not have much effect on him. "It's okay," Lu Yi replied and moved his right hand away from the hilt of his saber. The feeling of horror that frightened the cultivators on duty also disappeared at this moment. Elder Jiang glanced at Lu Yi with fear in his eyes and then bowed to Pang Huanin. "Palace Master Pang, we have sent someone to inform the Mountain Lord. Please wait here for a moment. The Mountain Lord will be happy to know that Palace Master Pang has come in person." He did not blame Pang Huanin and the others for forcing their way in. It had already happened, and there was no point in blaming them. Moreover, they were already in the territory of Mount Meru, and the strong dragon could not suppress the local snake. The decision and the way to deal with this matter would be taken care of by the higher-ups. The cultivators on duty could only pretend that they did not know anything. Therefore, what he needed to do was very simple. He needed to keep Pang Huanin here. "All right, then this palace lord will wait here for your mountain lord's arrival." Pang Huanin answered. Since they had already broken in, they should do as the mountain lord wished. If they forced their way out at this time, it would only cause a conflict. She was satisfied that the cultivators on duty were willing to pretend to be deaf and dumb. She turned her head and looked to the side. "Elder Shao, recover first. Yi, heal your injuries." In front of outsiders, it was not appropriate to call her fellow Taoist Lu, so she simply called Lu Yi by her name. As for Elder Shao, it was not easy to force open someone else's door. Even if he had the treasures left behind by the ancestors of the Dao Palace, his spiritual power was almost exhausted. Lu Yi and Elder Xiao were both frowning. One walked to the side and meditated to recover, while the other tore off his tattered clothes and fetched water to wash away the blood stains. The cultivators on duty could clearly see that the many wounds on Lu Ye's body were no longer bleeding, and the flesh around the wounds were tightly closed. They were all amazed. Pang Huanin just stood there quietly. She opened her mind and tried her best to sense something. But soon she gave up, because she could not sense anything. She was secretly amazed. That cultivator called Ing Wuji's Tao of Concealment was really superb. When they forced their way in, Lu Yi went first to distract the attention of the cultivators on duty. Pang Huanin followed closely behind and deliberately urged her spiritual power to make a lot of movements. She also released a bright light, not to show her strength, but to cover for Ing Wuji. Ing Wuji followed her in. The moment he came in, he hid his figure and then disappeared. At this moment, Ing Wuji was nowhere to be found. However, this was the plan they had made before they came, so she was not worried about anything. Pang Huanin did not understand why Lu Yi insisted on coming to Mount Meru. What method did he have to force Mount Meru to take the initiative to fight against the corpse race? If Mount Meru and Silver Snake Valley really wanted to take the initiative to fight against the corpse race, they would have taken action long ago. They would not have delayed until today. If the three great secret realms of the human race could sincerely cooperate and fight against the corpse race, they might be able to fight to the death with the corpse race. Unfortunately, Ziwei Dao Palace had worked hard for thousands of years, but there was no result. Therefore, she was still looking forward to Lu Ye's promise. She also had a wait-and-see attitude. She clicked to download the best book reading app. Many readers used it to read books aloud. Chapter 8:16. Pang Huanin came to Mount Meru's secret realm not only to fulfill the second condition she promised Lu Yi, but also to sit down and talk about cooperation with Mount Meru. Although the chances were slim, everything depended on effort. If one did not try hard, many things would never be accomplished. Pang Huanin stood quietly beside the door, Elder Xiao was quietly recovering, and Lu Yi had changed into new clothes. In the distance, at the Meru mountain range, several figures were rushing over. The one in the lead was tall and sturdy, with a full beard on his face. He had a natural heroic appearance. This man was the current master of Mount Meru's secret realm, Lu Zhengguan. At this moment, his face was gloomy. Obviously, he was not in a good mood. It was no wonder that he was in a good mood. After all, someone had barged into his secret realm uninvited. It turned out that the warning left by the ancestors was true. The Ziwei Daoist Palace really could calculate the location of the other two secret realms and even had the means to open them by force. He used to think that it was impossible, but after what happened today, he had no choice but to believe it even if he did not dare to. What was that woman trying to do? Compared to the anger in his heart, he was more puzzled. That woman must have known that such means violated the taboo of others, but even so, she did not hesitate to expose it. What was her purpose? Was she planning to completely fall out with Mount Meru? That was unlikely. Although he had only met Pang Huanin once, she was not an unscrupulous person. Relatively speaking, although she was young, she was more rational than most of the elders. Mountain Master, should we bring more people? A Mount Meru cultivator followed closely behind and asked, "Why would we bring so many people?" Lu Zhengguan snorted coldly. At the same time, somewhere in Mount Meru, in a quiet valley, a figure appeared like a ghost. It was Ing Wuji, who had disappeared after entering the secret realm. With his ability as a ghost cultivator and Pang Huanin's cover, the cultivators on duty in front of the secret realm would not be able to find him. For him, as long as he entered the secret realm, he would be like a tiger in the forest or a dragon swimming in the sea. Unless he wanted to, the people of Mount Meru would not be able to find him. After confirming that there was no one around, he took out a wooden box from his bosom. This box was given to him by Lu Yi. He didn't know what was inside, but on the way here, Lu Yi had told him to open the box after entering Mount Meru, then take out the things inside and casually find a hidden place to throw it away. What the hell is Lu Yi doing? Wuji was puzzled. Wuji gently opened the wooden box and the thing in the box. It was something that looked like a crystal, and there seemed to be something sealed inside the crystal. He seemed to have seen something extremely inconceivable, and his eyes and face were full of shock. It turned out that what Lu Qing said was true. Lu Ye had information that no one else knew. He must have received special guidance from Heaven's secret. Otherwise, how could such an outrageous thing appear in his hands? If it wasn't for the fact that it was inconvenient for him to act, he probably wouldn't have handed this item over to him to deal with. Thinking about how he had been by Lu Ye's side these days, but he did not gain much trust, Wu Ji felt a little sad. Yeah. Pang Huanin knocked on the door. Lu Yi, who was sitting in the room, opened his eyes and said softly, "Come in." Pang Huanin pushed the door open and entered. "What's the matter?" Lu Yi asked. "We came at the wrong time. It's Lu Zhengguan's big day, so we have to give him some gifts. But you know, I went out with Elder Xiao and didn't bring anything. So I was wondering if you could lend me something?" "That's right," Elder Xiao said. Lu Yi thought for a while and took out a bottle of good healing pills. Pang Huanin quickly raised her hand to stop him. "Don't take out the spirit pills. Your alchemy skills are far superior to ours. If you really take out something like that, Lu Zhengguan might have some inappropriate thoughts." Lu Yi took out some spirit tools. "These won't do." "Then what do you want?" Lu Yi looked up at her. Pang Huanin was a little embarrassed. "I don't know." She had never given anyone a gift before, so she had no experience in this field. She felt that this was a great learning. If the gift was too expensive, her heart would ache. If the gift was too cheap, others would think that she was stingy. Weighing the pros and cons was harder than cultivating. "Is there anything I can give to that woman?" She suddenly had an idea. If Lu Zhengguan wanted to get married, it meant that the woman was very important to him. Therefore, if she gave a gift to that woman, it would be better than giving Lu Zhengguan a gift. If she could dispel Lu Zhengguan's resentment, she could talk to him about joining forces. Lu Yi took out a small handkerchief. This thing was naturally his spoils of war. Its quality was not very good, only a mid-grade flying spiritual tool. He did not know where he got it from. He had a lot of things in his storage space that he didn't need at all. If a fight breaks out. The person who spoke looked nervous. "I heard that the woman is very strong. It's easier to take more people with you." Lu Zhengguan's voice was like thunder as he cursed, "This is Mount Meru, and I'm the Mount Meru Lord. Since she's already here, she won't be able to cause any trouble. If I take so many people with me, won't it weaken my momentum?" "Mountain Lord, you mean to take her down?" Lu Zhengguan turned his head and looked at the person who spoke as if he was looking at an idiot. "Then what? Wait for the Ziwei Taoist palace to take revenge? Why are you still so stupid after following me for so many years?" He looked rough and bold, but in fact he was very careful. He knew that even if the Ziwei Taoist palace violated their taboo, Mount Meru would not do anything unless they were willing to fall out with the Ziwei Taoist palace. This was probably why Pang Huanin dared to take the risk. If they really did something to Pang Huanin, Mount Meru might not be able to resist the Ziwei Taoist palace when they came back. However, knowing this was one thing, but the pent-up anger in his heart could not dissipate. From afar, he saw a group of cultivators on duty with swords drawn and a figure standing quietly. Lu Zhengguan's anger and annoyance instantly disappeared and was replaced by a cheerful smile. Before he got close, he laughed out loud. "I had a sudden feeling this morning that something good was about to happen. It turns out that it was Palace Lord Pang. I apologize for not coming out to meet you." As soon as he finished speaking, he was already not far from Pang Huanin. He had a bright smile on his face, as if he was very happy to see Pang Huanin. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Elder Xiao and Lu Yi. Lu Zhengguan had an impression of Elder Xiao. He knew that he was Pang Huanin's Tao protector. However, he did not have any impression of Lu Yi, so he paid a little more attention to him. Since Pang Huanin brought him with her at this time, he must be a good person. "Mountain Lord Lu, long time no see. I hope you don't blame me for coming uninvited." Pang Huanin nodded slightly and smiled. "You're too kind. Palace Lord Pang is such a distinguished guest that I couldn't even invite. It's my Mount Meru's honor to have you here today. If Palace Lord is interested, you can stay for a few more days and drink a cup of my wedding wine. Pang Huanin was stunned. Mountain Lord Lu is getting married? This guy seemed to have said before that among all the women in the world, only she was worthy of his attention. If he wanted to marry, she would have to be willing to marry. It was obvious that he had good eyesight. Moreover, Lu Zhengguan never seemed to be short of women. For so many years, he had no intention of getting married. Why was he suddenly getting married? This was strange. Pang Huanin couldn't help but be curious. What kind of woman could make Lu Zhengguan have such thoughts? However, it was only a trace of curiosity. Whether Lu Zhengguan got married or not had nothing to do with her. She had her own purpose for coming here this time. Lu Zhengguan scratched his head and laughed. I've made a fool of myself in front of Palace Lord. The group of cultivators on duty looked on in amazement. They thought that with their Mountain Lord's temper, he would be furious when he found out that someone had broken through his door. He might even lead a group of experts over and a big battle would be inevitable. However, their Mountain Lord didn't mention anything about breaking through the door at all. Instead, he chatted happily with Pang Huanin as if they were old friends who hadn't seen each other for many years. Then I have to drink a cup of your wedding wine. This is not the place to talk. Palace Lord Pang, please enter the mountain first. Lu Zhengguan said and extended his hand with a smile in his eyes. Pang Huanin nodded. Then I'll do as you say. Lu Zhengguan's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. Pang Huanin accepted his invitation so calmly, as if she didn't care even if there was a dragon's lair or a tiger's den ahead. Clearly, she was confident that Mount Meru wouldn't do anything to her. This woman's guts were not ordinary. Pang Huanin and Lu Zhengguan walked in front, while Lu Yi and the others followed behind. The two in front were chatting happily, while the others behind were silent and wary of each other. The atmosphere was strange. After entering Mount Meru, Lu Zhengguan said, Palace Lord, you've come a long way. Please rest for half a day. I'll have someone prepare a banquet. We'll drink and chat again in the evening. Very well. Pang Huanin naturally followed the host's wishes. Immediately, Lu Zhengguan ordered people to lead Pang Huanin, Lu Yi, and the others to a nearby spirit peak. The spirit peak wasn't big, and there were 3 to 5 palaces. It seemed that no one lived there usually. Lu Yi and the others entered the spirit peak and rested under the arrangement of Mount Meru's cultivators. In the side room, Lu Yi sat upright. Although his injuries hadn't healed, they weren't serious. For him, they were just flesh wounds. With the surging vitality in his body, such injuries didn't need to be treated deliberately. They would be healed in 2 or 3 days. When he opened his mind, he could sense the aura of cultivators hiding nearby. Obviously, they were left behind by Mount Meru to monitor them. It was a reasonable thing, so Lu Yi didn't care much about it. At the same time, somewhere in Mount Meru, in a quiet valley, a figure appeared like a ghost. It was Ying Wuji, who had disappeared after entering the secret realm. With his ghost cultivation ability and Pang Huanin's cover, the cultivators guarding the gate couldn't find him at all. For him, as long as he entered the secret realm, it was like a tiger entering the forest or a dragon swimming in the sea. Unless he wanted to, the people of Mount Meru would never find him. After confirming that there was no one around, he took out a wooden box from his arms. This box was given to him by Lu Yi. He didn't know what was inside, but on the way here, Lu Yi had told him to open the box after entering Mount Meru, then take out the things inside and casually find a hidden place to throw it away. What the hell is Lu Yi doing? Ying Wuji was puzzled. He gently opened the wooden box, and the thing inside was imprinted in his eyes. It was something like a crystal, and there seemed to be something sealed in the crystal. Ying Wuji fixed his eyes on it, and his eyes couldn't help but shrink. He seemed to have seen something extremely inconceivable, and his eyes and face were full of surprise. Soon he reacted. It turned out that what Lu Qing said was true. Lu Yi had information that no one else knew, so he must have received special guidance from Tianji. Otherwise, how could he have such an outrageous thing in his hands? This time, if it wasn't inconvenient for him to act, he probably wouldn't have handed this thing over to him. Thinking about how he had been following Lu Ye around these days, but didn't gain much trust, Ing Wuji felt a little sad. Yeah. Pang Huanin's voice sounded at the door. Lu Yi, who was sitting in the room, opened his eyes and said softly, "Come in." Pang Huanin pushed the door open and entered. "What's the matter?" Lu Yi asked. "We came at the wrong time. It's Lu Zhengguan's big day, so we have to give him some gifts. But you know, I went out with Elder Xiao and didn't bring anything. So I was wondering if you could lend me something?" "That's right," Elder Xiao said. Lu Yi thought for a moment, then took out a bottle of high-quality healing pills. Pang Huanin quickly raised her hand to stop him. "Don't take out the pills. Your alchemy skills are far superior to ours. If you really take out something like this, Lu Zhengguan might have some ideas he shouldn't have." Lu Yi took out some spirit tools. "These won't do either. Then what do you want?" Lu Yi looked up at her. Pang Huanin was a little embarrassed. "I don't know." She had never given anyone a congratulatory gift before, so she had no experience in this. She felt that this was really a great learning. If the gift was too expensive, she would feel distressed. If the gift was too cheap, others would think she was stingy. Weighing the pros and cons was harder than cultivating. "Is there anything I can give to that woman?" She suddenly had a flash of inspiration. If someone like Lu Zhengguan had the idea of getting married, it meant that the woman was very important to him. Therefore, if she were to give a gift to that woman, the effect would be better than giving Lu Zhengguan himself. If she could dispel Lu Zhengguan's resentment, then this trip would be a good time to talk to him about joining forces. Lu Yi took out a small handkerchief. Naturally, this thing was his spoils of war. The quality was not very good. It was only a mid-grade flying spiritual tool. He did not know where he got it from. He had a lot of things like this in his storage space that he didn't need at all. Chapter 8:17. This thing. Pang Huanin picked up the handkerchief-like spiritual artifact and examined it. She nodded and said, "This thing is suitable." Although the refining method was slightly different from that of the Wushuang continent, and it was quite exquisite, it was just a flying spiritual artifact after all. It was not useful in a battle. Although the quality was not very high, it should be very popular with women. "I didn't know." Pang Huanin glanced at Lu Yi with some ridicule. Obviously, she had misunderstood something. Lu Yi was too lazy to explain to her. "I'll accept this. Just take it as a loan." Pang Huanin put away the handkerchief and said with a serious expression, "Don't worry, I'll protect you." Pang Huanin's expression suddenly became strange. No one had ever talked to her like this since she was a child because she was the strongest earth cultivator in Mount Meru and even the entire Wushuang continent. She had always been the one protecting others, and no one was qualified to say that they would protect her. "What I mean is, if you want to do something, do it as soon as possible. You may not have a chance later." Lu Yi nodded. He had already given the thing to Ing Wuji in advance, so he did not need to do anything. He believed that Ing Wuji could handle it well. Pang Huanin soon left. In the evening, a cultivator of Mount Meru came to invite them, saying that Lu Zhengguan had prepared a banquet to welcome the 3 guests. Naturally, Pang Huanin didn't refuse. She led Lu Yi and Elder Xiao to another spiritual mountain peak. After a while, Lu Zhengguan stood up in the Spirit Mountain's ship to welcome them, followed by a group of Mount Meru experts. They greeted each other, and the guests and hosts were harmonious. However, with Lu Ye's powerful perception, he could naturally sense that there were many auras hidden in the hall. He knew that Pang Huanin was right. There was no way that Mount Meru would turn a blind eye to the previous incident. They would definitely make things difficult for Lu Yi. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to describe this hall as a dragon's lair or a tiger's den. Everyone entered the hall and took their seats. No matter what Lu Zhengguan's real personality was, at least on the surface, he was very forthright and easy to get close to. Under his loud greeting, everyone toasted each other and the atmosphere was very lively. After 3 rounds of wine, Pang Huanin smiled and said, "I came here in a hurry. I didn't know that Mountain Lord Lu was about to celebrate, so I wasn't prepared. This is just a small token of my appreciation. I hope Mountain Lord Lu won't take it to heart." As she spoke, she tilted her head and gestured. Elder Xiao, who was sitting below her, stood up and walked forward with an exquisite box. Lu Zhengguan laughed loudly and said, "Palace Lord Pang is considerate. Don't you think it's a coincidence? This Lu is just about to get married here, and Palace Lord Pang came. This is truly a double blessing." Ha! As he laughed heartily, the cultivators of Mount Sumeru naturally followed suit, the atmosphere seemingly harmonious. "I wonder what's in this box?" Lu Zhengguan asked casually. Pang Huanin said, "Mountain Lord Lu is a mountain lord, so I'm sure he doesn't lack anything. Therefore, this box isn't for Mountain Lord Lu, but for the future wife of my sister-in-law. As for what this box is, it's for a woman. She'll know after she sees it. I'm sure she'll like it." Lu Zhengguan was slightly surprised. He raised his hand and said, "If that's the case, then send it to the inner room." Immediately, a female cultivator who looked like a maid stepped forward and took the box from Elder Zhao's hand. She held it with both hands and flew away. Dozens of miles away from this spiritual peak, on another spiritual peak, a secluded palace was destroyed. In the dead of night, in a room in the deepest part of the palace, there were two figures of women. One of them was tall and beautiful, while the other had a plump figure and a quiet temperament. The candlelight in the room was dim. The woman with the quiet temperament sat by the table, casually stirring the wick of the candle, looking bored. The other woman with the tall figure sat opposite her and looked at her speechlessly. "In 3 days, Lu Zhengguan will be here to marry you. Aren't you worried?" The two of them had not known each other for long, so they were not close. However, they were both from Jiuzhou and were sent here by Jiuzhou's Tianji. Now that the others were nowhere to be seen, the two of them should advance and retreat together. Therefore, no matter what position she took, she did not want to see her companion marry someone from the Wushuang continent. "What's the use of being worried?" The woman with the quiet temperament smiled gently. "Are you going to take me and fight our way out?" The woman opposite her shook her head and said, "Don't count on that. Although I'm confident that I can escape alone, if I take you with me, it's impossible. So it's useless to be worried. Let's just wait and see. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have come to Mount Meru." The tall woman sighed. When they came to the Wushuang continent, the two of them met. The tall woman was a medical cultivator, so even if her cultivation was lower, she protected her well. Because she did not know when she would need her help. The two of them inquired about a lot of information about this world. In the end, they set their eyes on the 3 major human secret realms because they felt that the others would probably have the same idea. Therefore, if they wanted to meet with others, they had to borrow the power of the secret realms. Speaking of which, it was a coincidence. Just when the two of them were worried about not being able to find the entrance to the secret realms, they met a few earth cultivators in the wilderness who were about to die at the hands of the zombie clan. The tall woman saved their lives, and the gentle woman cured the original corpse poison in their bodies. The cultivators were immediately shocked by the gentle woman because there was no cure for the origin corpse poison. It had been like this for 1,000 years, so they never thought that there would be someone in this world who could cure the origin corpse poison. This made them realize the great value of the gentle woman, and they immediately sent out an invitation to enter Mount Meru. The two women already had this plan, so they naturally went with the flow. However, it was easy to come, but it was difficult to leave now. Especially that Lu Zhengguan, he intended to use this marriage as a restraint to keep the gentle woman in Mount Meru forever, and let her advance and retreat together with Mount Meru. Therefore, no matter what position she took, she did not want to see her companion marry someone from the Wushuang continent. "What's the use of being anxious?" The gentle woman with a quiet temperament smiled gently. "Don't tell me you want to take me and kill our way out?" The woman opposite shook her head and said, "Don't count on that. Although I'm confident that I can escape by myself, if I take you with me, it's impossible. So it's useless to be anxious. Let's just wait and see. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have come to Mount Meru." The tall woman sighed. When they came to the Wushuang continent, the two of them met. The other party was a medical cultivator, so even if her cultivation was lower, she still protected the other party very well because she never knew when she would need the other party's help. The two of them inquired about a lot of information about this world, and finally set their eyes on the three major human secret realms because they felt that others would also have the same idea. Therefore, if they wanted to meet others, they must borrow the power of the secret realms. Coincidentally, just when the two of them were worried about not being able to find the entrance to the secret realms, they met a few cultivators in the wilderness who were about to die at the hands of the zombie clan. The tall woman saved their lives, and the gentle woman cured the original corpse poison in their bodies. Those cultivators were immediately shocked by the gentle woman because there was no cure for the original corpse poison. For many years, they had never thought that there would be someone in this world who could cure the original corpse poison. This made them realize the great value of the gentle woman, and they immediately sent out an invitation to enter Mount Meru. The two women already had this plan, so they naturally pushed the boat with the current. However, it was easy to come, but it was difficult to leave now. Especially that Lu Jingguan, he intended to use this marriage as a restraint to keep the gentle woman in Mount Meru forever and let her serve Mount Meru. It would be best if she could spread the method to cure the original corpse poison. If so, Mount Meru would no longer have to fear the original corpse poison in the future. If not, why would Lu Jingguan do this? If he simply liked beauty, there was no lack of beauties in Mount Meru. I always feel that you are scheming something. Tell me, what do you plan to do? The tall woman looked at the figure in front of her. A woman's intuition was always sharp. After getting along with each other these days, she always had a feeling that this seemingly harmless medical cultivator who only knew how to treat people was definitely not as simple as she seemed on the surface. I'm just a medical cultivator, what kind of scheme could I have? The woman smiled gently. A moth suddenly flew towards the candle flame and was instantly burned to ashes. The gentle woman raised her eyebrows and looked at the other side. How about you marry in my place? The tall woman snorted. In your dreams. Don't blame me for not warning you. If you have any plans, you should discuss them with me early. Don't be caught off guard and can't cooperate with you. I don't have any plans. Someone is coming. The two women instantly fell silent. A moment later, there was a knock on the door. The gentle woman got up and opened the door. A female cultivator stood outside the door, holding an exquisite box in her hands. What's this? She looked down. Today, several distinguished guests came to the mountain. This is a congratulatory gift from those guests to Madam. Distinguished guests. The gentle woman was surprised. In the current situation of the Wuxia continent, the secret realms were basically closed. How could there be any distinguished guests? And for Mount Meru, those who could be called distinguished guests were probably working for the mountain. It would be best if they could spread the method to cure the original corpse poison. If so, Mount Meru would no longer have to fear the original corpse poison in the future. If not, why would Lu Jingguan act like this? If he simply liked beauty, there was no lack of beauties in Mount Meru. I always feel that you are scheming something. Tell me, what do you plan to do? The tall woman examined the figure in front of her. A woman's intuition was always sharp. After getting along with each other these days, she always had a feeling that this seemingly harmless medical cultivator who only knew how to treat people was definitely not as simple as she seemed on the surface. Fairywood romance. I'm just a medical cultivator, what kind of scheme could I have? The woman smiled gently. A moth suddenly flew towards the candle flame and was instantly burned to ashes. The gentle woman raised her eyebrows and looked at the other side. How about you marry in my place? The tall woman snorted. In your dreams. Don't blame me for not warning you. If you have any plans, discuss them with me early. Don't be caught off guard and can't cooperate with you. I don't have any plans. Someone is coming. The two women instantly fell silent. A moment later, there was a knock on the door. The gentle woman got up and opened the door. Outside stood a female cultivator with an exquisite box in her hands. What's this? She looked down. Today, a few distinguished guests came to the mountain. This is a congratulatory gift from those guests to Madam. Distinguished guests. The gentle woman was surprised. In the current situation of the Wuxia continent, the secret realms were basically closed. How could there be distinguished guests? And for Mount Meru, those who could be called distinguished guests were probably the important figures of the other two secret realms. The gentlewoman asked. The female cultivator hesitated for a moment, not knowing if she should say it. If you don't say it, take it back. The tall woman snorted coldly, her face as cold as ice. The female cultivator sighed and said truthfully, it's Pang Huanin of the Ziwei Taoist Palace. Palace Master Pang is here. It was indeed one of the other two secret realms, and the palace master of the Ziwei Taoist Palace. The gentlewoman accepted the gift and did not ask any more questions. The female cultivator left. After the female cultivator left, the tall woman suddenly said, how about I find a way to find that palace master Pang and ask her to save you? This is Mount Meru. Even the people of the Ziwei Taoist Palace have to follow the rules here. They can't offend Mount Meru for me. The others might not be worth the Ziwei Taoist Palace's attention, but you are different. If the Ziwei Taoist Palace knows that you have the ability to cure the origin corpse poison, they might be tempted. The gentlewoman shook her head. So what if they are tempted? The palace master of the Ziwei Taoist Palace is unlikely to take the risk. The tall woman thought about it and felt that it made sense. A powerful dragon could not suppress a snake in its own territory. As long as the people of the Ziwei Taoist Palace had some sense, they would not do as they wished. They did not know each other and did not have any special relationship. Feelings. Don't you want to see what it is? The tall woman looked at the exquisite box on the table. Take a look if you want, but it shouldn't be anything good. As soon as she finished speaking, the tall woman opened the box and took something out. She could not help but reveal a look of surprise as she looked at the gift in her hand. This thing. Hearing the change in her voice, the gentlewoman could not help but look up. She originally thought that it was some incredible treasure that made the woman so surprised, but when she looked at it, it was actually a spirit artifact that looked like a handkerchief. She was startled because this thing looked very familiar. Let me see. She stretched out her hand to ask for it. The tall woman handed over the handkerchief. The gentlewoman took it and carefully examined it. Her beautiful eyes revealed confusion. This is the flying cloud handkerchief? There were many types of flying spirit artifacts used by the cultivators of the 9 regions, but the most common type was the spirit boat-shaped flying spirit artifact because it was convenient to use. If female cultivators wanted to look beautiful, there were other types of flying spirit artifacts. For example, there was the flying basket that looked like a flower basket or the flying cloud handkerchief that looked like a handkerchief. When she had chosen her own flying spirit artifact, she had made a choice between the flying basket and the flying cloud handkerchief, and in the end, she had chosen the former. However, she was not unfamiliar with the flying cloud handkerchief. Therefore, she could tell at a glance that this was the flying cloud handkerchief, and it was something that came from the 9 regions Tianji treasury. She clicked to download the best book-chasing app, which many readers use to read books aloud. Chapter 8:18. In the main hall, many cultivators were sitting still. The atmosphere of toasting was no longer there. Instead, the atmosphere was solemn. Only Pang Huanin's deep voice could be heard in the hall. Fulfilling Lu Ye's request was secondary. The most important thing was that she wanted to take this opportunity to discuss with Lu Xingguan. She wanted to have a heart-to-heart talk about the possibility of the two sects joining forces to fight against the corpse race. She analyzed the current situation of the Wushuang continent. The current situation described the tragic fate of the human race in the outside world and predicted the possible future. Some drank silently, some looked on coldly, and some were disdainful. Even though Lu Xingguan's attitude was calm, he did not give a direct answer, nor was he discouraged. He continued to persuade her. As long as there was a chance, she did not want to miss it. Mountain Lord Lu, the 3 sects of the human race are indeed drifting in the void without a trace. But how long can this last? Thousands of years ago, the human race in the Wushuang continent was prosperous. Now, if the human race in the outside world is wiped out one day, how can the 3 sects of the human race remain unscathed? The sects of the human race in the outside world and the human race in the outside world are of the same origin. We should advance and retreat together. Mountain Lord Lu, please reconsider. Pang Huanin's words were sincere, and Hong Guang's expression was solemn. In the end, she added, if Mount Meru is willing to join forces with the Ziwei Taoist Palace, the Taoist Palace is willing to be the vanguard. Let's see if we can still eliminate the demons in this world after thousands of years. At the head of the table, Lu Zhenguan put down the wine cup in his hand and exhaled. He nodded and said, Palace Lord Pang is right. However, this matter is of great importance. I can't make the decision alone. I need to gather all the elders in the mountain and discuss it together. If Palace Lord Pang wants me to give an answer now, I'm in a difficult position. Pang Huanin said, it's good that Mountain Lord Lu has such intentions. It's also a blessing for the human race in the Wushuang continent. But Lu Zhenguan narrowed his eyes and stared at Pang Huanin. There's something I don't understand. Palace Lord Pang, please enlighten me. Pang Huanin said, go ahead, Mountain Lord Lu. The divination method of the 3 sects of the human race is a secret. I wonder how Palace Lord Pang learned the divination method of Mount Meru. What method did you use to open the door to my Sumeru mountain? Just as Pang Huanin had said to Lu Yi before, Lu Zhenguan was a man who appeared to be forthright on the surface, but in reality he was a scheming man. Although he did not mention a single word about them breaking into his residence, there was bound to be a time when he would make things difficult for them. After all, it was a taboo to barge into someone else's house. If everyone did this, then the mystic realm would not be safe in the future. For tonight's welcoming banquet, there were many powerhouses from Mount Meru in the open and in the dark. It was obvious that Mount Meru had made ample preparations. Pang Huanin also knew that if she couldn't give Mo Rua a full EMS, Mo Rua wouldn't have much of a chance to join forces with her. They might not even be able to walk out of this place alive. Of course, it was unlikely that Mount Meru would kill them. Lu Zhenguan would not want to offend Ziwei Palace. Elder Xiao! Pang Huanin shouted. Elder Xiao stood up and stepped forward. He took out a treasure that looked like a golden ring and presented it with both hands. The inheritance of Mount Meru has been broken, and many of its records have been lost. Mountain Lord, you may not know this, but when Mount Meru Mystic Realm was built, the ancestor of Ziwei Palace contributed a lot. Therefore, he left behind this item and the method of deduction so that if Mount Meru is in trouble in the future, we can help in time. There was no way to know the purpose of the ancestor of Ziwei Palace leaving behind this golden ring treasure, but it was definitely not as Elder Xiao said. As he spoke, a cultivator of Mount Meru took the golden ring from his hand and presented it to Lu Zhenguan. Lu Zhenguan held the golden ring in his hand and examined it over and over again, but he couldn't find anything special about it. Elder Xiao spoke again, we had no choice but to break into Mount Meru. But please rest assured, Mountain Lord Lu. This is the only treasure left behind by our ancestor. I'm the only one who knows the method of deduction. Now that I've presented this item to you, no one will be able to break into Mount Meru's door. Lu Zhenguan nodded slightly. The ancestor of Ziwei Palace is an outstanding person. This item is mysterious, but I can't see anything special about it. I believe Elder Xiao, but... He looked up at Elder Xiao. Mount Meru will accept this item. How can I accept such a wide array of methods? Please teach me, Elder Xiao. Elder Xiao said, this old man will keep his mouth shut like a bottle. I won't pass down the method of deduction. Lu Zhenguan shook his head slowly. It's not that I don't believe you, Elder Xiao. It's just that this is a serious matter, and we can't afford to make any mistakes. Then what do you think, Mountain Lord? Lu Zhenguan's face trembled slightly, and his voice gradually turned cold. Only the dead can keep secrets. Pang Huanin's heart sank. Elder Xiao nodded. Mountain Lord is right. In this world, only the dead can keep secrets. If Mountain Lord is willing to accept my Palace Lord's request, I'll give my life to Mountain Lord. What's wrong with that? Elder Xiao! Pang Huanin shouted. Elder Xiao didn't look at her. He shook his head slowly and looked directly at Lu Suoguan. Mountain Lord, I'm old and won't live for long. I'm not afraid of death, but Mountain Lord is still in his prime and has a lot of potential. After Mountain Lord, your descendants will be endless. Don't you think about your descendants? Do you want them to stay in this secret realm forever? Is that so? The world outside used to be the world of the human race. Now, we humans are hiding and hiding. The human race in the outside world is in a precarious situation. The three secret realms have the capital, but they only know how to take care of themselves. They don't dare to take the lead in the world. As such, they are unworthy of being secret realm cultivators. My palace lord is a woman, but she has the ambition to pacify the world. Mountain Lord is a good man. Are you inferior to my palace lord? Shut up. How dare you? Old man, you're courting death. As soon as Elder Shao finished speaking, the group of Mount Meru cultivators were filled with righteous indignation. In an instant, the spiritual energy in the hall surged, and the scene became chaotic. Elder Shao didn't stop. Instead, he took a step forward and said in a threatening manner, "Today's matter is my Dao Palace's fault. If Mountain Lord wants to take my life to prevent future troubles, I have nothing to say. I only hope that Mountain Lord can see the world's situation clearly and agree to join forces with my Dao Palace to fight against the enemy. If so, I will die without regrets." In the face of Elder Zhao's aggressiveness, the muscles on Lu Xingguan's face trembled even more. He just wanted to deal with the Dao Palace's implementation of the Sumerer Gate method, but he was forced to make a choice by the old man in front of him. He sighed inwardly. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. In the current situation, if he really wanted to kill Elder Shao, he would have to agree to join forces with Dao Yan. In that case, Pang Huanin wouldn't say anything. At that time, even if it was for the sake of the harmony between the two secret realms, he couldn't vent his hatred. However, if he didn't kill Elder Shao, the first version of the Yan Shaoji incident would be over. The old man's impassioned speech seemed as if he was willing to die for the human race in the world, but in fact, he was forcing him to make a decision. Lu Xingguan was worried about the fire in his head, but he couldn't help it. Just as he was worrying, a female cultivator, Huiyu, rushed in. Lu Xingguan suddenly stood up and shouted, "What's the matter?" This female cultivator was obviously the person he arranged to stay at the spirit peak where the two women lived. Could it be that something had happened there? This shocked Lu Xingguan quite a bit. One of the two women must not be in any danger. Elder Shao and Pang Huanin were secretly surprised by his exaggerated attitude. The female cultivator hurriedly reported, "Mountain Lord, the lady is very satisfied with the gift from today's guest. She said that she would like to personally thank you." Lu Xingguan heaved a long sigh of relief. His hanging heart was relieved. As long as nothing happened there, it was fine. As for personally thanking them, no need. Lu Xingguan waved his hand. Tell them to rest in peace. He couldn't wait to hide such a woman. How could he let Pang Huanin and the others see her before the wedding? If Pang Huanin knew about her abilities, the Ziwei Dao Palace might do something. Since ancient times, among the three great secret realms, the Ziwei Dao Palace had the most cultivators who died at the hands of the corpse race. There were many who committed suicide because they were poisoned by the origin corpse poison. If Pang Huanin knew that the woman had the ability to cure the origin corpse poison, she definitely wouldn't let her go. Hence, Lu Xingguan wouldn't let Pang Huanin see that woman easily. He was curious about this trip to the Ziwei Dao Palace. What kind of gift did he give her that made her so satisfied that she didn't even hesitate to personally thank him? Mountain Lord, the sisters couldn't stop her. The female cultivator looked terrified. She didn't care about the presence of outsiders and reported truthfully. What couldn't stop her? Lu Xingguan's voice trailed off. He finally understood what was going on. There were fluctuations of spiritual power, and he could vaguely hear clanking sounds coming from afar. It seemed that someone had stopped a fight and was rushing toward them. Pang Huanin's eyes flashed with surprise. She secretly gave Elder Shao a look, and Elder Shao hurriedly retreated. Just as he was about to whisper a few words to Lu Yi beside him, he saw that Lu Yi was looking outside with a thoughtful look on his face. "Yi, what's wrong?" Pang Huanin asked. Lu Yi suddenly smiled. "Nothing." Pang Huanin was stunned. Ever since she met Lu Yi, she had never seen him smile. She thought that this guy was a cold person. She didn't expect that he could smile. However, this smile, seemed to have a deeper meaning. Just as she was puzzled, two figures rushed in from the entrance of the main hall. A group of female cultivators followed closely behind them. All of them looked wretched. It was obvious that they didn't manage to gain anything. They tried to stop them along the way, but it was to no avail. The person they were trying to stop was unimaginably powerful. Lu Zhengguan thought that his plan was foolproof, but it was useless in front of the woman with two sabers. Chapter 8:19. The sudden appearance of the two women caused the atmosphere in the hall to become strange. Pang Huanin and Elder Xiao obviously didn't know what was going on and were both surprised. Lu Zhengguan's face darkened. The scene he didn't want to see the most still happened. How did they get here? A bunch of trash. They couldn't even stop two people. He glared fiercely at the group of female cultivators who rushed over and quickly walked down from the main seat. With a smile on his face, he greeted the two women who broke into the hall. "Why are you here? If there's anything, you could have asked someone to inform me. Why did you have to come here personally?" He made up his mind that he couldn't let Pang Huanin know about this gentlewoman's ability. As he spoke, he gave a look to the female cultivators behind them. Only then did the female cultivators retreat, but they still had lingering fear on their faces. They could feel that in the simple exchange just now, the woman with the dual sabers had shown mercy. Otherwise, many of them would have died. "Which one of you is Palace Master Pang Huanin?" Of the two women, the gentle and quiet one asked softly. Although it was a question, her eyes immediately fell on Pang Huanin. Then, she glanced at Lu Yi, who was beside Pang Huanin with a smile in her eyes. Now that things had come to this point, it was no longer realistic to try to stop anything. Lu Zhengguan still had some vigilance in his heart and said, "It seems that Palace Master Pang's gift is indeed extraordinary. Come, let me introduce you." He became more and more curious. What kind of gift did Pang Huanin have that she had to come here personally to thank him? In terms of overall strength, the Ziwei Taoist palace was indeed stronger than the other two sects, but in terms of wealth, it might not be as good as his own. What kind of gift could Pang Huanin have? Under his lead, the two women came to Pang Huanin. Lu Zhengguan said, "This is the palace master of the Ziwei Taoist palace, Palace Master Pang Huanin." He didn't introduce the two women to Pang Huanin. After they thanked him, he immediately sent them away. Pang Huanin didn't move and nodded with a smile. "It's just a small gift. It's fine as long as you like it." She paused for a moment and asked, "How should I address you?" She was indeed a beauty. Her temperament was also the type that men liked. However, her cultivation didn't seem to be very high. He didn't know what special ability she had that made Lu Zhengguan want to marry her. Compared to the gentle woman in front of her, Pang Huanin was more concerned about the tall woman behind her. She could sense that this woman was not someone to be trifled with. "Hua Si I." She then introduced the girl behind her, "This is my senior sister, Lan Zi." Lan Zi didn't say anything and just kept staring at Lu Yi. There was a faintly discernible smile at the corner of his mouth. With this person here, things would be much easier. Lu Ye's eyelids drooped slightly as he sat motionless. When Pang Huanin saw this strange scene, she suddenly realized something and her heart skipped a beat. "All right, it's late. You've thanked me. Go back and rest," Lu Zhengguan urged. However, Hua Si acted as if she didn't hear him. She glanced past Pang Huanin and looked at Lu Yi. Lu Yi looked up and met her eyes. He was a little amused, but also a little annoyed and helpless. "You want to get married?" Hua Si curled her lips. "I didn't agree to anything. It's just their wishful thinking." Lu Yi nodded. "Then it's bullying." "That's right." Hua Si's expression was serious. She couldn't help but say coquettishly, "You have to make a decision for me." Lan Zi, who was behind her, couldn't help but be surprised. She looked at Hua Si and then at Lu Yi in confusion. Why did the two of them sound so familiar? As far as she knew, the two of them shouldn't know each other. But now, it seemed that things weren't as she thought. Lu Ye and Hua Si must have known each other for a long time. It was just that they pretended not to know each other when they were in the land of the 9 states. And from the looks of it, they didn't just know each other. This was going to be a good show to watch. However, Lu Ye was really insidious. He deliberately hid his relationship with Hua Si. What was he trying to do? Lan Zi quietly took 2 steps back. How could someone as strong as Lu Ye remain indifferent in such a situation? She didn't want to be splashed with blood when he raised his blade. Yeah, what's going on? Although Pang Huanin had some suspicions, she couldn't help but want to confirm it. As soon as the words left her mouth, she felt a pair of sharp eyes staring at her. Yeah. Hua Si's voice was faint, and she looked like she was about to cry. No wonder you didn't care about me these past few days. It turns out you have a new lover. As expected, it's always the newlyweds who laugh. How can you hear the old crying? As she said that, she even pretended to wipe the corner of her eyes with her sleeve. Lu Yi felt a headache coming on. Lan Zi secretly praised the show. Although Pang Huanin didn't know what was going on, she could more or less sense something. She hurriedly explained, Miss Hua Si, it's not what you think. Then Hua Si, what's going on? Lu Xingguan's face turned green. Since Lan Zi brought Hua Si into this place, the development of the situation was completely out of his control. The scene in front of him was like a scene of a man and a woman who had been separated for a long time. It made him furious. Who are you to call Hua Si by her name? Lu Yi suddenly raised her head and looked at Lu Xingguan with a gaze as sharp as a blade. Lu Xingguan was shocked. At this moment, he couldn't help but feel like a sheep being stared at by a ferocious tiger, and he was the harmless sheep. In an instant, his whole body turned cold. How dare you? How dare you? Someone shouted loudly. Lu Yi had already jumped out of her seat. She picked up Hua Si and threw her to Pang Huanin. Like the wind, she rushed in front of Lu Xingguan. Clang! She unsheathed her long blade, and a fiery red blade light flashed. When she saw Hua Si and Lan Zi, Lu Yi knew that today's matter was destined to not end peacefully. Since that was the case, she had to make the first move. It was impossible to reason with them. Strength was the biggest reason. How dare you? Lu Xingguan was furious. The spiritual power and qi and blood in his body instantly burst out. He raised his hand and summoned an extremely heavy blade to meet the fiery red blade light. Although the earth cultivators of Mount Meru did not have the determination and courage of the cultivators of Ziwei Dao Palace to fight the corpse race to the death, they were all sitting here with high cultivation, so their reaction was naturally not slow. The moment Lu Yi made her move, the group of Mount Meru cultivators had already moved. In an instant, the spiritual power in the hall surged, and the scene became chaotic. Pang Huanin's expression changed greatly. She never expected things to develop like this. She knew that Mount Meru would definitely make things difficult for her on this trip, but it should not be a fight. Mount Meru had scruples, so as long as they operated properly, it should not be a problem for them to escape unscathed. However, the current situation was completely out of her control. The only thing she could do was to protect Hua Si as much as possible. Lu Yi threw Hua Si to her before she made her move. Obviously, this was her purpose. When she thought of this, she quickly pulled Hua Si behind her. When she looked up again, her expression froze. This was because she saw Lu Xingguan's figure flying high with a huge wound on his chest and abdomen. His flesh was torn open, and blood was spilling out. His rough face was full of shock, as if he did not expect to be seriously injured by a single blade strike. This was the first time Pang Huanin saw Lu Yi make a move, so the shock in her heart was no less than Lu Xingguan's. Previously, when Feng Ruli revealed his strength in Ziwei Dao Palace, he bluntly said that the 9 senior brothers were ranked according to strength, so as the eldest senior brother, Lu Yi should be the strongest. However, Pang Huanin did not know how strong this strongest person was. Although she had speculated in her heart, now it seemed that her speculation had completely underestimated Lu Ye's ability. Lu Xingguan's strength was not as good as hers, but it should be only a little, otherwise, he would not be able to sit on the position of Mount Meru's mountain lord. However, such a powerhouse was seriously injured by Lu Yi in a single move. It seemed that this was the result of Lu Yi showing mercy, otherwise, Lu Xingguan might not have survived. Although there were elements of a sneak attack, It was enough to show Lu Ye's strength. On the other hand, Lan Zi's performance also shocked Pang Huanin. This tall and slender woman danced with 2 sabers in her hands and blocked all the Mount Meru cultivators who were pouncing on Lu Yi by herself. Although the situation seemed to be in danger, Pang Huanin knew that she did not have the ability to do so. In other words, this Lan Zi's strength surpassed hers. After seriously injuring Lu Zhengguan with 1 saber strike, Lu Yi did not pursue. Instead, he held the sabers in his hand and stood quietly in place. Lu Zhengguan fell to the ground. Just as he struggled to get up, he suddenly froze as if he was struck by lightning. This was because he felt a stabbing pain in his back, as if something sharp had pierced his body, and it was only an inch away from his heart. There was someone behind him. Lu Zhengguan's hair stood on end. Before the other party attacked, he did not notice at all. Who could it be? He looked around and saw Pang Huanin, Elder Xiao, Lu Ye, Hua Si, and Lan Zi. All the recent outsiders were here. Who else would sneak up on him from behind? He could not say that there was a traitor in Mount Meru, right? Everyone stop. An unfamiliar voice came to his ears. It was not loud, but the noise in the hall quieted down as soon as it came out. The Mount Meru cultivators' eyes almost popped out of their sockets as they looked at Lu Zhengguan, who was being held hostage by Wuxia. At the same time, they were puzzled. Where did this guy come from? They had never seen him before. Pang Huanin and Elder Xiao couldn't help but gasp in amazement. Before Wuxia made his move, they didn't even notice his presence. They didn't even know that Wuxia was hiding in the hall. Such a way of hiding and attacking was truly terrifying. Even though he was being held hostage and severely injured, Lu Zhengguan did not show the slightest fear. He only looked at Pang Huanin and gritted his teeth. Pang Huanin, you're good. So this is your plan. Chapter 8:20. From Lu Zhengguan's point of view, everything was obviously planned by the Ziwei Taoist palace, and Pang Huanin, as the palace master, was the culprit. However, he did not expect Pang Huanin to be so bold. Not only did she barge into his territory, but she also dared to take the initiative to attack without any warning. That guy named Lu Ye had such terrifying strength. If he had not been seriously injured by him, he would not have been captured so easily. Pang Huanin sighed. Mountain Lord Lu, you misunderstood. At this point, it was useless to explain. She felt helpless. Lu Zhengguan snorted coldly. Don't think that you can do whatever you want after capturing me. Don't forget that this is Mount Meru. He suddenly shouted, People of Mount Meru, listen up. Don't worry about my life or death. Capture all these people. If I die, they will be buried with me. Wuxia thrust his long saber forward and said in a low voice, If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish now. You do it. Even if his life was in the hands of others, Lu Zhengguan had no intention of backing down. Instead, he provoked them, Kill me if you dare. Seeing that the people of Mount Meru did not dare to act rashly, he shouted again, What are you waiting for? Do it. Pang Huanin's expression turned cold. If only Mountain Lord could be so tough when facing the Corpse clan. Unfortunately, Mountain Lord's toughness and persistence are used in the wrong place. After today's incident, she felt quite sorry for Mount Meru, but when she saw Lu Zhengguan's attitude, she could not help but be annoyed. If he had such courage to face death, why not use it against the Corpse clan? What was the point of being so arrogant in front of fellow human clansmen? Such a person would only be a tyrant in his own home. Cut the crap. At this moment, Hua Si's figure came out from behind Pang Huanin. She looked at Lu Zhengguan and smiled gently. Mountain Lord Lu, how about I make a deal with you? Although Lu Zhengguan appeared to be furious, it was only a disguise. Hearing Hua Si's words, he couldn't help but frown. What kind of deal do you want to make? Hua Si said unhurriedly, using the lives of all these Sumeru mountain cultivators in exchange for a chance for us to leave safely, does Mountain Chieftain think this deal is possible? Lu Zhengguan's face sank. What do you mean by that? I might not be able to explain it clearly. Why don't you see it for yourself, Mountain Chieftain? As Hua Si spoke, she suddenly lifted her slender finger and activated her spiritual power. She then pointed in the direction of a cultivator in the crowd. An inconceivable scene appeared. Following this, the cultivator couldn't help but let out a muffled groan. His spiritual power was instantly thrown into disarray and a layer of dark green mist quickly emerged from his body. It was obvious that the fog wasn't anything good. It erupted without any warning, and in just a few breaths of time, the cultivator was completely enveloped. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't dissolve the fog, and it even showed signs of becoming denser. The surrounding cultivators hurriedly dispersed, all of them bewildered. "I've been poisoned!" The cultivator shouted in horror. He could clearly feel that his spiritual power had become stagnant and obscure, and his strength was rapidly declining. Everyone was shocked. Lan Zi felt her scalp go numb. These days, she had been inseparable from Wuxia, but she had never seen Wuxia use any tricks on the people of Mount Meru. On the surface, this medical cultivator looked as gentle as jade and harmless to humans and animals, but who would have known that she had such unfathomable abilities? That cultivator couldn't have been poisoned for no reason. Wuxia must have done something in secret. No wonder Wuxia hadn't been in a hurry these days. Even if she was afraid of being forcefully kissed, she was still calm and peaceful. No wonder she had been thinking about everything these days, but was afraid of being killed by the strong. It turned out that she was a female thief. She had been prepared. Now it seemed that even if Lu Ye and the others didn't come to Summer Mountain, Wuxia would have been able to leave safely with her methods. Sure enough, those who could be chosen by Tianji were no ordinary people. It was ridiculous that he had thought that she was just a medical cultivator. In the main hall, in front of Pang Huanin, Wuxia was still smiling innocently. "Mountain Master, if you didn't see clearly, you can look at other things." As soon as these words were spoken, the many cultivators of Mount Meru were all frightened out of their wits. No one knew if they had secretly done something evil or not. The muscles on Lu Xingguan's face were trembling violently, and the corners of his eyes were twitching nonstop. At this moment, how could he not know that he had made a mistake? Between the two women, the one with the gentle temperament was the one with the hidden depths. It was ridiculous that he had always thought that he could control her at will. Lu Xingguan said in a deep voice, "Since you two entered Summer Mountain, I've treated you well." Huasi immediately interrupted him. "We saved the cultivators of Summer Mountain, so we entered Summer Mountain. It's fine that Summer Mountain didn't repay our kindness, but Mountain Master even disregarded my wishes and wanted to force us to meet. Is this what you mean by treated well? Mountain Master, ask yourself, is this what a man should do? You can't be called a man if you act like this." The smile on her face was gone, and her eyes were cold. How could she be indifferent when it concerned her own life? Back then, she had saved Lu Xingguan out of the goodness of her heart. Who knew that Lu Xingguan would value her so highly? It would have been fine if he valued her highly. If they had cooperated properly, Huasi might have agreed. However, Lu Xingguan wanted more. These days, Lan Zi thought that she was calm in the face of danger, but in fact, she was secretly deploying her own means, waiting for the right time to strike a heavy blow. When the time came, with her secret means and Lan Zi's powerful strength, it would not be difficult to escape from this place. The arrival of Lu Yi and the others today only pushed her plan forward. Lu Xingguan was embarrassed by her words, and now that he was captured and his life was out of his control, he was so angry that he blurted out, "Bitch, how dare you bully me?" Asterisk clang. Asterisk, the sound of a blade suddenly rang out, and everyone in the hall stared in shock at Lu Yi, who had just swung his blade. Lu Xingguan's eyes were also filled with disbelief, as if he didn't expect that someone would dare to kill him in Mount Meru. He was so arrogant just now, even if his life was in the hands of others, but he knew that Ziwei Dao Palace couldn't really kill him, because Ziwei Dao Palace had been trying to join forces with them to fight against the corpse race and kill him for so many years. If that happened, the two forces would become mortal enemies, and there would be no possibility of joining forces. Pang Huanin was young, but she was experienced in dealing with things, so it was impossible for her not to understand this. Therefore, he was fearless. However, this fearlessness was cut off by a saber at this moment. Lu Xingguan stared at Lu Yi, unable to understand. What was this guy doing? Pang Huanin didn't say anything, but he attacked without warning. If he wanted to kill him, he could have done it earlier. Why would he do it now? Puff, Ing Wuji, who had been standing behind Lu Zhengguan all this time, hurriedly stepped back and looked at Lu Yi with a bitter expression. Why didn't you say anything before attacking? You almost made me bleed. If I can't make the decision, then I'll find someone else who can. Lu Yi shook the blood off the long saber in his hand and looked at the group of furious Mount Meru cultivators. He raised the long saber in his hand and pointed at them. Or, we can kill our way out. Looking at his determined attitude, Hua Si felt a warm current in her heart. She could feel that Lu Yi didn't have the intention to kill Lu Zhengguan before, otherwise, he wouldn't have asked Ing Wuji to kill him. The reason why she had slashed out without any warning was because Lu Zhengguan had scolded her. A simple insult, but Lu Yi decisively took his life. If Lu Zhengguan knew about it in the underworld, he would definitely regret saying that. Now that they had completely shed all pretenses of cordiality, Hua Si naturally didn't hold back anymore. The spiritual power around her surged, and a circle of green air suddenly rippled out. In the next moment, the expressions of 7 or 8 of the 10 Mount Meru cultivators in the hall changed drastically. Green mist rolled around their bodies, and their spiritual power condensed. When Hua Si showed her ability before, many of the Mount Meru cultivators still had a fluke heart, but now they didn't dare to do so. No one had noticed when this woman, who was as gentle as water, had poisoned them. Many of them had not even seen Hua Si's face before this. Since I can detoxify, I can also use poison. My senior brother's temper is not very good. Everyone of Mount Meru, you should think carefully before you answer. Don't make a river of blood when the time comes. There will be no way to clean up the mess. Hua Si lightly warned. Even if she didn't warn them, who would dare to act rashly in this situation? The death of Lu Zhengguan greatly damaged Mount Meru's reputation, but its foundation was not shaken. However, if everyone here died, Mount Meru would definitely be in chaos. For a moment, the bodies of the Mount Meru powerhouses stiffened. Both Pang Huanin and Elder Shao were dumbfounded. Since the arrival of Hua Si and Lan Zi, it had only been a few dozen breaths, and all kinds of unforeseen events really caught everyone off guard. With Lu Zhengguan dead, all the Mount Meru powerhouses in the hall were under the control of others. It could be said that Lu Yi and the others completely controlled the bureau with the strength of 4 people. With such means, the Ziwei Taoist palace was no match for them. With a sigh, an elderly man stepped forward and bowed to Lan Zi. Palace Master Pang, this old man is untalented, but I should be able to represent Lin Yaoping. Until now, they still thought that Lin Yaoping was the one in charge here, and everything that happened before was under Lin Yaoping's instructions or hints. Lan Zi was also helpless. In today's matter, she and Elder Shao were just spectators. Old mister, if you have something to say, you can tell Iya in detail, Lin Yaoping said. The old man was stunned for a moment. Then he looked at the mountain master, who was brimming with killing intent. Without beating around the bush, he said bluntly, today's matter is indeed unpredictable. Putting aside the merits and demerits, I, Pang Huanin, can agree to Miss Lu Ye's proposal. You can leave safely later. However, I have a condition. If you don't agree to it, I, Pang Huanin, will do my best to keep you here. Chapter 821. Lu Ye's words were a mixture of carrot and stick, clearly expressing Mount Meru's attitude. No one questioned him. The main reason was that they couldn't question him. Too many people's lives were in his hands. They thought that by saying this, everyone would sit down and have a good talk. Unexpectedly, Lu Yi just looked at the old man coldly and said, "You can try." Murderous intent surged as if there was no one around. Ing Wuji was alarmed and almost couldn't help but lean against the wall. He had been very close to Lu Yi recently and had fought with him before. He thought that he knew Lu Yi more or less. However, he had never seen Lu Ye's face full of hostility. Even when the other party had already admitted defeat, Lu Yi was still unwilling to give them a way out. It was as if he really wanted to slaughter everyone here. He didn't doubt Lu Ye's ability, especially under the premise that most of the Mount Meru experts here were poisoned. If they really fought, he, a ghost cultivator, might not have an easy time. As this thought flashed in his mind, Wuji looked at Hua Xi, who was standing beside Pang Huanin. How could he not understand that this medical cultivator must be extremely important to Lu Yi? It was fine if he didn't know about Mount Meru before, but now that he knew, he would naturally be furious. Thinking of this, Wuji sucked in a breath of cold air and glanced at Lu Yi, thinking that this guy was really sinister. That giant armor has a close relationship with him. It's fine if he secretly hid it from him, but now there's Hua Xi too. Jiuzhou Tianji sent a total of 9 people here. These 3 people were already a small group. He secretly warned himself that he must be more careful in the future. He didn't want to be betrayed by Lu Ye and still help him count the money. The old man of Mount Meru was a little embarrassed after being snubbed. If it was any other time, he would definitely be furious. However, when he thought of Lu Zhengguan's example, he could only suppress his anger. Pang Huanin sighed. Yeah, they are humans after all. Over the past 1,000 years, many corpses have died in their hands. She was going to intercede. The last thing she wanted was to see her clansmen kill each other. As humans, even if they died, they should die in the battle with the corpses. They shouldn't waste their strength in internal strife. Lu Zhengguan died a little regretfully. Hua Xi, who was standing beside her, said. Only then did Lu Yi retract his killing intent and lower his blade. Tell me about it. The old man let out a long sigh and looked at Pang Huanin gratefully. After a moment of consideration, he said, I would like to ask Miss Hua Xi to detoxify the poison in our bodies. This was a reasonable request. Now that he was in a disadvantageous position, how could he dare to say anything overboard? It was just that Lu Yi was in a fit of anger just now, which almost put him on the spot. Hua Xi immediately tossed out a jade bottle. This is an antidote. The old man raised his hand and took it. His gaze was unhurried. This old man wants to test the efficacy of the medicine. Miss Hua Xi won't mind, right? Of course not. The old man nodded slightly and poured out a spirit dan from the bottle. He stuffed it into his mouth and sat down cross-legged to refine it. Behind him, a group of Mount Meru cultivators nervously watched. The effect of the detoxification pill was very fast. In just 30 breaths of time, the green mist that shrouded the old man slowly dissipated. The old man could also feel that the stagnant spiritual power in his body was gradually returning to normal. A moment later, he had completely recovered. After confirming the efficacy of the detoxification pill, the old man stood up and nodded slightly at Hua Xi. Miss, you keep your promise. Mount Meru is not an unscrupulous organization. Do you want to leave now or rest for the night? Pang Huanin couldn't help but laugh. If you stay here to rest, you will feel uneasy, and we will feel uneasy too. Let's go now, or else we will hate each other. Gash. The old man signaled. At the same time, he raised the super Bao Chunra in his hand. After a while, several streams of light flew out from the main hall of the Spirit Peak and headed straight for the door. There was no one else but the old man who was traveling with Lu Yi and the others. This also showed the sincerity of Mount Meru in sending them away. They didn't say anything along the way. When they arrived at the door, the old man ordered the cultivators on duty to activate the door. Pang Huanin took advantage of the free time and said, if the zombie disaster on the Wushuang continent is not eliminated, the human clan will have a hard time establishing itself in the future. Mount Meru should think about it carefully. If you make a decision, inform the Ziwei Taoist Palace as soon as possible. The old man didn't comment. Sorry to trouble you, Palace Master Pang. Pang Huanin sighed. She knew that he didn't take her advice seriously, so she didn't say anything more. She looked at the door that had appeared in front of her and said, you go first. Lu Yi didn't waste time. She grabbed Hua Xi's arm and urged her spiritual energy to protect her. At the same time, she ordered Lan Zi, second junior sister, you stay behind. Lan Zi was confused. What's second junior sister? Who is second junior sister? Mount Sumeru had no intention of making things difficult for them. Not to mention the fact that Lu Yi and the others had already shown enough strength. Even with Lu Zhengguan's death, Mount Sumeru still had a lot of mess to clean up, so they were more than happy to send Lu Yi and the others away as soon as possible. At this critical juncture, how could they cause any unnecessary trouble? When second junior sister, who was guarding the rear, walked out of the door with a speechless look, the door of Mount Meru quickly closed and disappeared. Is it done? Pang Huanin looked at Lu Yi. Lu Yi looked at Ing Wuji. Ing Wuji was stunned for a moment, then he nodded. It's done. It was a simple matter. If he couldn't even do it, he wouldn't have the face to come back and see Lu Yi. Lan Zi frowned. What the hell are you doing? What was done? She felt that Lu Yi and Ing Wuji seemed to have some unspeakable secrets, but she didn't want to ask in front of outsiders. Elder Xiao is pushing the door of the Taoist palace. Please wait for a moment. Pang Huanin looked at Elder Xiao and said. She then looked at Hua Si and Lan Zi with interest. Yeah, aren't you going to introduce them? Lu Yi pointed at Lan Zi. This is my second junior sister, Lan Zi. Lan Zi's eyes widened. She was finally sure that the second junior sister Lu Yi mentioned was her. This is junior sister Hua Si. Lu Yi pointed at Hua Si and introduced Pang Huanin to Hua Si and Lan Zi. Lan Zi nodded slightly, but Hua Si bowed gracefully. Pang Huanin returned the greeting and glanced at the four people in front of her. She couldn't help but sigh. You're all dragons and phoenixes among men. What kind of magical world was the 9 states? It could give birth to so many outstanding people. If the Wushuang continent had such a foundation, the zombie plague wouldn't be a problem. She felt a little sad. Okay, let's go. Elder Xiao had already calculated the direction of the Ziwei Taoist Palace's door. He said and led the way. Everyone followed closely behind on their flying spiritual artifacts. Along the way, Lan Zi looked at Hua Si, who was sitting on the Lu Yi spirit boat. She was almost leaning her entire body into Hua Si's embrace. She couldn't help but snort softly. Indeed, people would forget their old love when they had a new love. Previously, the two sisters had protected each other and got along so well. Now that they had a man, all sisters had to stand aside. She suddenly accelerated and approached Ing Wuji. She needed to ask Ing Wuji about the current situation and the whereabouts of the others. Most importantly, what was their relationship with the Ziwei Taoist Palace? Yeah, this doesn't seem to be the 9 states. Our battlefield marks are not responding at all. I know. Lu Yi couldn't help but frown. Yeah, did you find giant armor? I wanted to ask Mount Meru to keep an eye on your whereabouts, but that Lu Zhengguan isn't a good person, so I had to give up. There's no clue about giant armor. Don't worry about him. Lu Yi frowned even harder. Actually, even if you didn't come this time, I still had a way to get away. When we saw the flying cloud handkerchief, Lan Zi and I knew that someone from the 9 states must have come. Yeah, did you know about me and used the flying cloud handkerchief to remind us? Dong. Lu Yi couldn't help but hit Hua Si's head. She gritted her teeth and said, Can you be normal? Yi Zichen shouted one leaf after another. It was so awkward. Hua Si didn't get angry. She just rubbed her head and teased, What? Others can call you that, but I can't? With a mocking look on his face, Zhang Xian raised his head to look at Pang Huanin. Their eyes met. Pang Huanin pursed her lips and smiled. She turned back and continued on her way. How can I decide what others call me? I came here as Pang Huanin's entourage. She can't call me fellow Taoist. Lu Yi explained. That's true. Hua Si was relieved. Forget it. I won't bother you anymore. The corners of her eyes curved, and she was in a good mood. By the way, what's the situation with second junior sister and little junior sister? Hua Si remembered something. To the people of this realm, I'm the eldest senior brother, and Ing Wuji is the 7th junior brother. That means Lan Zi is the 2nd junior brother, and you're the youngest. I see. Zhu Xing understood. Then how did you get together with Palace Master Pang? Is she trustworthy? After suffering at Mount Meru, Lu Yi didn't have a good impression of the people of this so-called secret realm. She felt that they were a group of incompetent people who could only tremble in the face of the chaos of the outside world. This woman is different from Mount Meru. The Ziwei Daoist Palace is also different from the other two secret realms. If we need help, only the Ziwei Daoist Palace can help. We can't count on the other two. You have a plan? Lu Yi heard the hidden meaning in his words. I'm almost done talking. The next step is to see how determined the Ziwei Daoist Palace is. If they're determined enough, this trip won't be too difficult. Zhu Xing rolled his eyes. So we're the ones begging them? We need each other. After all, this is their realm, and we're just passers-by. What do I need to do? Use your medical skills. You'll be very busy when the time comes. When the battle started, many people would be injured or poisoned. Zhu Xing's role would be reflected. This was probably why Jiuzhou Tianji chose him as the team's medical cultivator. Chapter 8:22. How did you enter Mount Meru? Lu Yi asked. Hua Xi then briefly recounted the process of her and Lan Zi entering Mount Meru. When she mentioned how she detoxified the Origin Corp's poison on the cultivators of Mount Meru, Pang Huanin, who was flying in front, suddenly turned her head with an incredulous expression. Junior sister, you can detoxify the Origin Corp's poison? Hua Xi nodded silently. At first, she didn't expect that her ability would be valued so highly. Later, when she entered Mount Meru, she had some insight, but it was already too late. Now that Lu Yi was by her side, there was no need to hide anything. I see. Pang Huanin understood. She was wondering why a person like Lu Xingguan would want to marry her. It turned out that junior sister Ye had such ability. In the Peerless Continent, there had been no cure for the Origin Corp's poison for thousands of years. Countless cultivators had lost their lives to the Origin Corp's poison. Among the three great secret realms, the Ziwei Dao Palace had the most deaths because of this because they had the most intense battle with the corpse race. If someone had such ability, the Ziwei Daoist Palace wouldn't have lost so many people over the years. When Lu Xingguan learned about this, he naturally coveted it. In his position, how could he miss such a talent? However, he used the wrong method to make them stay, and in the end, he died with everlasting regret. They rushed all the way until dawn. Under the lead of Elder Xiao, they arrived at a mountain peak. According to Elder Xiao's calculation, the Ziwei Daoist Palace would be nearby in one day. They could open the door here and return to the Daoist Palace. Along the way, everyone was travel-worn and sat down to rest. Lu Yi set up an array nearby to prevent the corpse race from disturbing them. Compared to the others, he recovered very quickly. He only needed to take a few more spirit pills. When he looked up, he saw Pang Huanin, who was in charge of guarding, standing not far away. She had her hands behind her back and was looking in a certain direction. Lu Yi got up and walked to her side. He followed her gaze but saw nothing. Pang Huanin said softly, "What was the Wushuang continent like 1,000 years ago? Now, we can only read a little about it in the ancient books left by our ancestors. Now, the Wushuang continent is in ruins and corpses are everywhere. I don't know what the future of the human race is." She was full of worries. Lu Yi listened quietly and did not interrupt. Pang Huanin sighed. The Pure Heaven Temple used to be one of the top labor forces of our human race, but now, it has been occupied by the corpse race, and its secret realm has become a place for the corpse race to raise corpses. After so many years, our human race can't even figure out how strong the Golden Corpse King is. Has no one fought with him? Lu Yi asked. Pang Huanin said, 400 years ago, the Palace Lord of the Dao Palace led a group of people to attack the Turbid Heaven Temple. Unfortunately, they were almost wiped out before they could even see the face of the Golden Corpse King. In the end, only a few people escaped, but they all died not long after because of their heavy injuries. She turned to look at Lu Yi. Yi, I don't know what your plan is. I just want to ask, how confident are you? If I can kill my way into the secret realm of the mysterious realm of the mysterious realm of the mysterious realm of the mysterious realm, then 100%. Pang Huanin's pupils shrank. Generally speaking, those who spoke with such certainty were not trustworthy, because the future was unpredictable, and who could be completely sure of something that had not happened yet. However, these words came from Lu Ye's mouth, so Pang Huanin did not doubt it at all. So, You must enter the pure heaven's secret realm. Lu Yi nodded. It's difficult. Pang Huanin shook her head and gestured to the front. That's the place where the corpse race is the most concentrated. The 3 corpse commanders under the Golden Corpse King are all powerful, and the corpse race is even more difficult to calculate. Is the pure heaven temple there? Lu Yi suddenly interrupted her. Pang Huanin's movement just now had caught his attention. Pang Huanin was stunned for a moment, then she nodded and said, "It's about 5,000 miles away from here. To be honest, this place is already the periphery of the pure heaven temple." Lu Yi fell into deep thought, and after a long while, he suddenly said, "Maybe we don't need to fight the corpse race head-on. I'll go over there and take a look." As soon as he finished speaking, he had already rushed into the sky and headed straight in that direction. Pang Huanin looked at his back in shock and felt helpless for a moment. The commotion alerted the rest of the people who were resting, but no one asked anything. Even Hua Xiai quickly closed her eyes and continued to recuperate. With the support of the windwalking wings, Lu Yi turned into a fiery red stream of light. In order to avoid exposing his whereabouts, he flew very high. Before he set off, the people of the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance gave him 4 sealed pillars of Heavenly Secret Realm. After arriving at the Wushuang continent, it happened that there were 4 secret realms here. The human race had 3 of them, and the corpse race had 1. This was obviously not a coincidence. The 4 sealed pillars of Heavenly Secret Realm were to be used in the 4 secret realms. Now that the human race had left 1 pillar of Heavenly Secret Realm each, only the secret realm of the pure heaven temple was left. As long as the last pillar of Heavenly Secret Realm could be placed in the secret realm of the pure heaven temple, the purpose of this trip would basically be achieved. Therefore, Lu Yi had to enter the secret realm of the pure heaven temple. Now that he knew that the secret realm was not far away, he naturally had to check it out. Maybe if he was lucky, he would be able to sneak in directly. The pure heaven secret realm was different from the 3 secret realms of the human race. The 3 secret realms of the human race were drifting in the void, ethereal and untraceable, but the pure heaven secret realm was fixed in the pure heaven temple. This was undoubtedly good news for Lu Yi. Looking down through the clouds, he could vaguely see the scenery on the ground. Pang Huanin was right. The place where they were before was already considered the periphery of the pure heaven temple. The deeper they went, the easier it was to find the whereabouts of the corpse race. The yellow clouds shrouded the place, which was the place where the rotting corpses were raised. As for the lone zombies, it was not easy to find their whereabouts. In less than 2 hours, Lu Yi stopped, gathered his spiritual energy in his eyes, and looked down. Even though there was a great distance between them, a huge door was imprinted in their eyes. It was the door of the pure heaven temple's secret realm. Different from the doors of the 3 secret realms, the door of the pure heaven temple had a physical existence. It was as if a square hole had been broken open in the space, and multicolored light flowed in the hole, connecting 2 worlds. Corpses were constantly coming in and out of it, and it looked extremely lively. Near the door, there were even more corpses gathered and cultivated. Lu Yi could not help but frown. In such a situation, it was not easy to sneak in, and once his whereabouts were exposed, he would not end well. Even if a ghost cultivator like Ing Wuji were to do this, there might not be a chance of success. After pondering for a while, Lu Yi activated concealment and breath control to strengthen himself, trying his best to hide everything, and slowly floated down. Compared to the concealment method unique to ghost cultivators, he relied on the power of spirit tattoos, and each had its own advantages. Many corpses obviously did not expect that someone would be so bold as to sneak into their hinterland alone. In addition, Lu Yi was careful enough, so although there were many corpses near the door, he did not expose himself until he landed in front of the door. Reaching this step could be considered a good start, but the next test was. With the experience in the Silver Snake Valley secret realm, how could Lu Yi not know that once he stepped into this door, his whereabouts would be exposed? However, he did not need much time. As long as he could get rid of the corpses at the beginning, 10 breaths of time would be enough. Taking a light breath, Lu Yi raised his hand and pressed on the hilt of his saber, and stepped inside. his vision spun, and when he came back to his senses, he had already appeared in the secret realm of the heavenly temple. Looking up, Lu Yi could not help but frown. As far as his vision could see, the densely packed corpses were difficult to calculate. Pairs of turbid and lightless eyes gathered on him in astonishment. He originally thought that the number of corpses outside the door was enough, but after entering the door, it was like seeing a big witch. Even though the Wushuang continent was broken, it had given birth to many human beings over the years. Except for the normal life and death, many of these human beings were turned into zombies, or turned into zombies by rotting corpses and turned into members of the zombies under the devil. The corpses he encountered in the wild were scattered, and there were not many of them. That was because 99% of the corpses were gathered in the heavenly temple. One could imagine how large the number of corpses gathered here was. When many gazes looked over, even Lu Yi felt a mountain-like pressure, because there was no lack of powerful auras among these corpses. Damn it! This thought immediately emerged in Lu Ye's mind. In such a situation, not to mention settling down the sealed Tianji pillar, if he really fell into it, it would be an extravagant hope for him to escape unscathed. Even as this thought appeared in his mind, a powerful force suddenly awakened in the depths of the arcane pocket realm. It was impossible to say how far away it was, but Lu Yi felt as if his skin was as soft as a bull's, and his heart was filled with alarm. For no reason, Lu Yi knew that he had been bitten by the Golden Corpse King. With his current strength, only this Golden Corpse King could bring him such pressure. Overlord level. Lu Yi immediately had a rough estimate of the Golden Corpse King's strength in his heart. This was definitely an overlord level existence, and it was not an overlord level in an abnormal sense. Back in the Fox Immortal Valley, there were actually 200 fox demons who surrounded and hunted the overlord level berserk giant ape. With the help of the formation set up by Lu Yi, more than half of them were killed in the battle. However, the berserk giant ape was only a demon beast after all. Even if its strength was at the overlord level, its intelligence would not be too high. Otherwise, it would not have fallen into Jianghu's formation and been created by the formation. This Golden Corpse King was undoubtedly stronger and more difficult to deal with than the berserk giant ape. If the people of the Fox Immortal Valley had surrounded the Golden Corpse King that day, no matter how many formations Lu Yi had set up, the entire army would have been wiped out. Roar! The roar of the corpses rang out. After a brief moment of shock, many corpses realized that someone had broken into their territory and immediately swarmed towards Lu Yi. Lu Yi hurriedly retreated and stepped out of the secret realm, no longer hiding. The corpses outside were also alarmed. Chapter 8:23. The operation had failed. Lu Yi was calm and not discouraged at all. This was just an attempt. If it succeeded, everything would be fine. He would be able to obtain the last pillar of heaven's secrets without any effort. Although he had failed, he did not suffer any losses. However, he had to leave quickly. He had already alerted the Golden Corpse King when he barged into the turbid sky mystery realm. Now that his whereabouts were exposed and he was in enemy territory, it was best to retreat first. Thus, the moment he left the mystery realm, he had already activated his spirit power. The fiery red spirit power behind him flowed and wriggled, turning into a pair of wings. He stepped on the ground and soared into the sky. He came stealthily, but left like a bolt of lightning. Roar! The corpse race roared and chased after him. However, Lu Ye's flying speed was something that even the top Cloud River Tier 9 cultivators of the 9 states could not catch up to. How could these corpse race catch up? The only trouble was that there were corpse race constantly rising into the sky to intercept him. There were zombies, as well as rotting corpses hidden in the yellow clouds. The Pan Mountain saber had already been unsheathed. Lu Yi sped along. Everywhere he passed, there was a rain of blood. Even the large scale of the corpse race could not stop him. Clang! Suddenly, the clear sound of a sword rang out from another direction. Hearing the sound, Lu Yi immediately turned around and raised his eyebrows. In that direction, many flying swords revolved around each other, and many sword lights shot into the sky. It was as if a sword dragon was attacking from that direction, rapidly approaching his direction. Wrapped in the sword dragon, a sword-like figure stood tall. Mu Qingyun. Of the 9 people from the 9 states, he and Ing Wuji were the first to meet up. They found Lu Qing and Feng Ruli in the Ziwei Dao Palace, and brought Lan Zi and Hua Ci out of Mount Meru. The remaining 3 were nowhere to be found. However, Lu Yi was not worried about their safety. No matter who they were all quite powerful and would have no problem protecting themselves. The Ziwei Palace had also begun to investigate their whereabouts. Lu Yi believed that it would not be long before they found some clues. However, he did not expect to meet Mu Qingyun here. As the sword son of the North Mystery Sword sect, he had received Mu Suifeng's true teachings. Naturally, his strength was extraordinary. Among this generation of Cloud River tier cultivators, if it were not for Lu Yi and Lan Zi, he would be the undisputed champion of the Cloud River contest. Strictly speaking, Mu Qingyun could represent the standard of the Cloud River tier in the 9 prefectures. Both Lu Yi and Lan Zi had exceeded this standard due to their own reasons. It was obviously not a coincidence that Mu Qingyun would suddenly appear at this time. Lu Yi speculated that he had been hiding nearby for a long time, and the commotion here was noticed by him, so he appeared to meet up with him. Although the 2 of them didn't communicate, they tacitly moved closer to each other as they fought. In a short moment, the 2 of them had already gathered together. This time, he was like a tiger that had grown wings. The sword dragon surged, and the saber light was biting cold. The corpse race in front of him fell down like rice straws, and broken corpses fell down one after another. Only after an hour did those corpse clan members gradually give up the chase. They really couldn't catch up. In the direction of the gate of the Muddy Heaven Holy Palace, among the many corpses, the members of the 3 great corpse clans with silver, bronze, and iron skin looked up to the sky and mourned, their hearts full of unwillingness. After flying to a safe distance, Mu Qingyun withdrew her sword light and stepped on her flying sword, walking side by side with Lu Yi. Lu Yi also retracted her wings and summoned her spirit boat. Only now did the 2 of them have the time to greet each other. Junior brother Lu, long time no see. Mu Qingyun's face was brimming with a smile. When they gathered in the 9 prefectures, the 2 of them didn't have time to chat at all before being sent here. They didn't have any interaction before, but because of Li Baxian's relationship and the fact that they were both from the Grand Heaven Alliance, the 2 of them were naturally close. Senior brother Mu. Lu Yi replied, "Why are you here, senior brother?" Mu Qingyun said, "After being sent to this realm, the battlefield mark didn't respond, so I couldn't find you guys anywhere, so I came here. I thought that no matter where you guys are, you'll definitely come here to deal with the corpse race in the end, so I waited here." It seems that junior brother's thoughts coincide with mine. The point guard is here. When he saw Lu Yi running over alone, he thought Lu Yi had the same idea as him. "I came to scout the situation," Lu Yi explained casually, "but didn't expect to meet you, senior brother." "Did you see the others, junior brother?" "Other than Yang Yuan and Giant Armor, the others have already gathered." "Oh." Mu Qingyun raised his eyebrows, "That's really good." After a pause, he asked again, "Junior brother, I don't know much about this realm, so I don't know what to do next. Can you teach me?" Lu Yi thought for a moment and said honestly, "Actually, before coming to this realm, there was someone from the Tianji Business Alliance waiting for us on the spiritual mountain where we gathered. I was the first to arrive, and that person gave me something." These things were actually not considered secrets, but he was too lazy to say much to Ing Wuji and the others. However, there was no need to hide it from Mu Qingyun, so he naturally told him everything. Hearing his words, Mu Qingyun was thoughtful. Although the 4 sealed Tianji pillars match the number of Tianji pillars in the 4 secret realms, how can junior brother be so sure that the Tianji pillars must be placed in the secret realms? After all, Tianji doesn't have a clear guide. Senior brother hasn't been to the secret realms, so you naturally don't know. This Wushuang continent is broken. Although there is heaven and earth spirit energy, it is extremely thin. On the other hand, the spirit energy in the secret realms is rich, and it can be maintained for so many years. There is no doubt that there is a spirit vein in the secret realms, and the scale of the spirit vein is definitely not too small. Although the Wushuang continent was not very good now, it was a broken fragment of a realm after all, so it still had a foundation. Mu Qingyun nodded slightly. He was naturally not unfamiliar with the spirit vein. After all, he was a Cloud River realm cultivator, so it was impossible that he had not even heard of this. The transmission of the Tianji pillars requires spiritual power, but we can't detect it when we are in the 9 provinces. Therefore, if we want to use the Tianji pillars, we must place them in places with rich heaven and earth spirit energy. The 4 secret realms are the best and the only choice. Mu Qingyun was thoughtful. Then what will happen after the Tianji pillars are placed? Lu Yi shook his head. I'm not sure, but I think the 9 provinces Tianji can use these 4 Tianji pillars to completely establish a connection with the Wushuang continent. At that time, not only can our battlefield imprints be restored, but the 9 provinces can even provide reinforcements through the Tianji pillars. Mu Qingyun's eyes gradually brightened. So our role is roughly equivalent to an advance party, mainly to establish a connection between the Wushuang continent and the 9 provinces. I think so, but whether it is true or not, we will know when the time comes. That should be the case. If so, wouldn't the Wushuang continent become a secret realm of the 9 provinces in the future? At that time, everyone in the Cloud River battlefield can come over? If that really happened, then the corpse disaster here would not be a problem at all. How many Cloud River realm cultivators were in the 9 provinces? No matter how many corpses there were, they would not be able to withstand their hunting. Moreover, in order to stimulate the cultivators' enthusiasm, killing corpses was very likely to be rewarded with merits or battle merits. Unlike Lu Yi and the others, killing here and there, they would not get any benefits at all. At that time, this place would become a treasure land for the cultivators of the 9 provinces to train themselves, and they might even need to pay a price to enter. Thinking of this, Mu Qingyun couldn't help but have a strange thought. Perhaps many of the secret realms in the 9 provinces came about like this? He didn't think too much about it. To him, it was meaningless to think about this. However, he finally understood why Lu Yi would force his way into the secret realm of the Heavenly Palace. However, looking at his appearance just now, it seemed that he did not succeed. Junior brother, how many places have you set up? Only the Heavenly Palace is left. The situation here is a little troublesome. Mu Qingyun nodded. There are still many experts in the Corpse clan. Earlier, I met a guy with bronze-colored skin. He was very strong. I fought with him for a while and didn't dare to delay, so I ran away. Mu Qingyun was the 3rd in the Cloud River realm, so there was no need to mention his strength. For him to give such an evaluation, the Corpse race was definitely not weak. That should be the Copper Corpse commander under the Golden Corpse King. Mu Qingyun smiled. It seems that Junior brother knows much more than me. At the very least, he didn't know what a Copper Corpse commander was. Senior brother, I'll tell you slowly. The two talked as they flew. After more than 4 hours, they returned to their previous place. Pang Huanin stood up to greet him. When she saw Mu Qingyun beside Lu Yi, she was surprised. Yi, this is 3rd junior brother, Mu Qingyun, Lu Yi introduced casually. On the way here, Mu Qingyun had learned about their ranking, so he was not surprised. He cupped his fists and bowed. Greetings, Palace Master Pang. Pang Huanin returned the bow. Before leaving, I had asked people to keep an eye on the whereabouts of your senior brothers. I didn't expect Yi to find one of you first. This is good news. She turned to look at Lu Yi. How was your trip? Lu Yi shook his head. The corpse race is huge and there are many powerhouses. It's a little difficult. In the end, they still had to rely on the power of the Ziwei Taoist Palace. Otherwise, it would be difficult to rely on the people from the 9 states. 8,000 years have passed. Don't worry. Pang Huanin comforted him. Let's go back to the Taoist Palace to rest. After waiting for another 2 to 4 hours, Elder Shao opened the door, and everyone returned to the Taoist Palace. Ing Wuji led everyone to the Spirit Mountain where they were arranged to rest. Lu Yi stayed and talked with Pang Huanin. The situation was very clear now. If they wanted to solve this matter and achieve the purpose of this trip, They had to kill their way into the secret realm of the Celestial Palace. However, if they did so, it would be accompanied by great risks. Even if Pang Huanin was willing to trust Lu Yi and had no doubts about what he said, as the palace master, she could not make such a decision easily. This was also the third condition that Lu Yi was prepared to propose to Pang Huanin. Of course, after Lu Yi revealed his identity as a cultivator of the 9 states, there was no need to mention the condition anymore. When they parted, Pang Huanin sighed and said, "Give me 1 night. I'll give you an answer tomorrow." Lu Yi nodded. Okay. He clicked to download the best book reading app. Many readers used it to read books aloud. Chapter 824. The Ziwei Taoist Palace was the only place they could borrow power from. If even the Ziwei Taoist Palace couldn't make up their mind, then the Wushuang continent's problem would be unsolvable. They couldn't expect the 9 of them to slowly eliminate the Corpse Clan's power. Who knew how long that would take? Lu Yi returned to the Spirit Peak where the Ziwei Taoist Palace had arranged for them. As soon as he entered the Spirit Peak, he sensed something strange. That was expected. He descended from the sky and looked up. Lu Qing, Lan Zi, Feng Ruli, and Ing Wuji stood together as if they were waiting for him to return. On the other side stood Mu Qingyun and Hua Xiai. The 2 camps were clearly separated. What's the matter? Lu Yi looked up and glanced at the 4 people from the Wanmo Ridge. Lu Qing stepped forward and said, "Lu Ye, now that things have come to this, shouldn't you tell us the details?" Lu Yi looked at Ing Wuji and said lightly, "Don't you all know?" He didn't mean to deliberately hide the Tianji pillar. If he did, he wouldn't have brought Ing Wuji with him, nor would he have given him the task. It was just that he had always been too lazy to tell others too much. When Mu Qingyun asked him about it, he didn't hold back and told her everything. Ing Wuji was with him this time, so he would definitely be questioned by Lu Qing and Feng Ruli. He was from the Wanmo Ridge, so he wouldn't hide anything from Lu Qing and the others. Thus, Lu Yi had expected this to happen. Ing Wuji couldn't help but shrink back. Lu Qing shook his head. "Although I know some things, I'm still confused. Lu Ye, the 9 states Tianji sent the 9 of us here. No matter what the purpose is, we should abandon the idea of camp. In this world, there is no Haotian alliance, no Wanmo Ridge, and we are all cultivators of the 9 states." Feng Ruli nodded fiercely. "Yes, yes." Lu Qing continued, "You're the strongest, so we have nothing to say about you being the eldest senior brother. But since you're the eldest senior brother, shouldn't you take good care of your junior brothers and sisters? Not to mention other things, you're not a competent eldest senior brother when it comes to sharing information." In fact, until today, these people only knew that they came to the Wushuang continent to solve the zombie crisis. As for how to solve it, they had no clue at all. However, based on what Ing Wuji had seen and heard while following Lu Yi, it was clear that Lu Yi was planning something. Everyone present was a prodigy of their respective sections. In the 9 prefectures, they could be considered one of the most elite cultivators of the Cloud River tier. Normally, they were the ones who called the shots in front of their own junior brothers and sisters. However, when they arrived here, they were completely in the dark. This feeling of not being able to see the path ahead was not a pleasant one. Therefore, before Lu Yi returned, they had agreed that no matter what, they had to get some information from him tonight. They didn't make things difficult for Lu Yi. Instead, they tried to persuade him with emotion and reason. The main reason was that Lu Yi was too powerful. It wouldn't do them any good to have a falling out with him. "I was going to tell you all this anyway. There's no need to put on such a show." Lu Yi responded indifferently. The plan had reached the final step. No matter what decision the Ziwei Dao Palace made, they had to kill their way into the Heavenly Palace. In this way, the strength of the 9 people was indispensable. In the face of these core disciples from various top sects, if they were to hide anything, they would be disheartened and disheartened. Therefore, no matter what, they had to be clear with them. Lu Qing's expression softened. He smiled slightly and said, "That would be for the best. We have been rude." Lu Yi repeated what he had said to Mu Qingyun on the way back. Everyone listened silently. No one spoke. "That's all I know." I've finished speaking. We have to fight our way into the Heavenly Palace Mystery Realm, and the last pillar of Heaven's secrets must be placed there. Who agrees and who disagrees? Lu Yi placed one hand on the hilt of the saber at his waist and swept his gaze across the people in front of him. No one spoke. That means no one disagrees. Lu Qing said, I have something to say. Lu Yi looked over. Lu Qing said, Fellow Taoist, I agree with your speculation that the 4 mystery realms correspond to the 4 pillars of Heaven's secrets. Now that 3 pillars of Heaven's secrets have fallen, only the Heavenly Palace Mystery Realm is left. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. Earlier, he had asked Lu Yi if he had received any special guidance from Heaven's secrets. Lu Yi clearly said no. But now, it seemed that not only did this guy receive guidance that no one else had, but before he set off, the 4 important pillars of Heaven's secrets had fallen into his hands. No one else knew about it. Heaven's secrets of the 9 prefectures was a little too biased. That's right. Fellow Taoist, you have personally investigated the Heavenly Palace Mystery Realm. Do you think we can do it with our strength? No. Lu Qing understood. So no matter what, we have to borrow the strength of the Ziwei Dao Palace. Fellow Taoist, were you talking to Pang Huanin about this just now? Lu Yi didn't say anything. It was a tacit agreement. What's the Dao Palace's attitude? Did Pang Huanin give an answer? It's a matter of great importance. She needs one night and will give an answer tomorrow, Lu Yi replied. If the Dao Palace agrees, it'll be best if we join forces. But what if the Dao Palace doesn't agree? Lu Qing frowned. Things have already developed to this point. We can't pin our hopes on others. Do you have a way? Lu Qing shook his head. What can I do? Perhaps fellow Taoist can find Palace Master Pang and have a good talk? The last 4 words were spoken in a cold voice, and his expression was meaningful. His meaning couldn't be more obvious. Lu Yi glanced at him and walked toward his room. His voice floated softly. Don't worry. She will agree. Although Pang Huanin was a woman, she didn't have the weakness of a woman. Since she could shoulder the entire Ziwei Dao Palace, she wasn't a soft and gentle person. Although they didn't have much contact, Lu Yi could feel that she was inclined to cooperate with Lu Yi and the others. However, since she was the palace master, she had more things to consider. At the same time, on another spirit mountain, in the palace master's hall, Pang Huanin stood with her hands behind her back. Elder Xiao stood quietly beside her, but his expression was obviously not calm. Pang Huanin's words just now sounded unbelievable to him. 9 provinces? Is there really another world domain in this world? If they didn't come from another world domain, how could these people be so quiet before? How could they appear in such a group? The other 2 sealed territories can't cultivate such people, let alone the strongholds outside. So Palace Master believes little friend Lu's words? Elder Xiao asked. I don't dare to believe it, but I have to believe it. You've seen how he killed Lu Jingguan with his saber. He's only an 8th order Cloud River Realm cultivator, but he possesses such strength. He's definitely not someone who can be born in the current peerless continent. Moreover, those people all have their own strengths. Although they don't look any different from the cultivators of our peerless continent on the surface, there are still some differences. Then Palace Master means, I don't know. Pang Huanin smiled bitterly. Just as Lu Yi thought, she wasn't a soft and decisive person. She had always been a smart and capable person. However, the decision she had to make at this moment was too important. It was almost related to the survival of Ziwei Dao Palace. She couldn't help but reconsider. Elder Xiao couldn't help but sigh. He was Pang Huanin's Dao protector and had watched her grow up. How could he not know what Pang Huanin was thinking at this moment? For 1,000 years, the Purple Hidden Dao Palace has to carry on the legacy of our ancestors and fight against the corpse cult. However, the situation of the human race doesn't seem to have changed. Elder Xiao said softly, if this continues, even if another 1,000 years pass, the situation will only get worse. Pang Huanin's eyes lit up. Elder Xiao, are you saying that we should change? If things are really as little friend Lu said, then those people are the variables of this world. In the past, the Tao Palace didn't have this opportunity. Now that we have, why don't you give it a try? But, Palace Master, no cultivator of the Tao Palace is afraid of death. It's all about the value of death. After so many years, how many disciples have died in the hands of the Corpse Clan? As the Palace Master, it's natural for you to consider their lives. However, even if you let them choose for themselves, I believe they won't let you down. Palace Master has always been smart, so why can't you see this? Elder Shao stroked his beard and continued, let's take a step back and say that the Tao Palace is wiped out because of this. So what? At least we'll die with a bang and a worthy death. But what if we succeed? If we succeed? Pang Huanin couldn't help but fall into a trance. Her eyes became brighter and brighter. I'm old and won't live for long. I don't have many pursuits in my life, but before I die, I want to try and see if I can fulfill the long-cherished wish of my ancestors. Those people are guests from the 9 states. As outsiders, they have such courage. The cultivators of the Tao Palace are natives of the Wuxia continent. How can we be inferior to others? Palace Master, when outsiders are risking their lives, we can't just stand by and watch. That will make others look down on us. Wanimo Ling let out a long breath, turned around, and bowed to the Palace Master. Thank you for your trouble. He stood up again with a determined look in his eyes. It was obvious that he had made a decision. The Palace Master stroked his beard and smiled. Okay. At dawn, Wanimo Ling didn't hide his figure in the Tsaojia courtyard. He directly landed from the sky. The doors of the various rooms opened, and figures from the 9 states walked out. Elder Shao nodded slightly as their eyes met. Wanimo Ling bowed to everyone and said in a deep voice, I'm Wanimo Ling from Ziwei, Luqing, and Wanimo Ling. Please help me, Tsaojia, to eradicate the Wuxia corpse disaster. Elder Shao said, Pang Tsaojia, please don't worry. We came here for nothing but this. A smile appeared on Wanimo Ling's face. Then we have to sit down and have a good talk. Let's talk here. Elder Shao stepped forward and ordered casually. 7th junior brother, bring a few chairs. Ing Wuji almost couldn't help but curse. Was there any justice in letting him do all the work? Hurry up and solve the problem here and return to the 9 states. He had enough of this bullshit 7th junior brother. Chapter 825. 2 hours later, an order from the Palace Master spread throughout the entire Ziwei Tao Palace. 10 days later, the Tao Palace would launch an all-out attack on the Heavenly Sacred Hall. All Tao Palace cultivators inside and outside the mystic realm, regardless of their cultivation level, regardless of age or gender, were to obey the order. Anyone who disobeyed the order and fled before the battle would be expelled from the Tao Palace. With the order from the Palace Master, the entire Tao Palace was in an uproar. At first, many people were at a loss and did not understand. This was because the order of the Tao Palace Master had been issued too suddenly. There had been no warning before. Since ancient times, although the Ziwei Tao Palace had targeted the corpse race many times, taking the initiative to attack the turbid Heaven Sacred Hall had only happened 3 times. The first 2 times had happened not long after the Great Shift, which was nearly 1,000 years ago. Even the most recent 3rd time was a few hundred years ago. In the past few hundred years, the Tao Palace had not made any big moves. The Tao Palace's current foundation was far inferior to the past. The first 3 times, they had failed and suffered heavy losses. What kind of people would attack the Heavenly Sacred Hall this time? But even though they were confused, when the order spread, most Tao Palace cultivators could not help but be excited and look forward to it. As Elder Shao had said before, none of the Tao Palace cultivators were afraid of death. They were only afraid of dying without any value. After so many years of fighting against the corpse race, countless ancestors had fallen one after another. The Tao Palace and the corpse race had long reached a point where only one side could live. No matter what the Palace Master's considerations were, he had issued the order. The deep blood feud between the corpse race and the corpse race for generations made it so that they could only obey the order. Soon, another piece of exciting news spread. The Dao Palace had found a medical cultivator who could cure the origin corpse poison. Boosting morale before a great battle was the most common method used in war. For the cultivators of the peerless continent, no news could boost morale more than this. This was especially true for the Ziwei Dao Palace, which had the highest casualty rate among the 3 mystic realms of the human race. Over the years, countless Dao Palace cultivators had committed suicide because of the origin corpse poison. The Dao Palace had also tried to find a way to cure the origin corpse poison, but they had not been able to do so. Until now. As such, when the news spread, all the cultivators of the Dao Palace became even more excited. With that, they would have less to worry about when fighting against the Corpse Clan. They could go all out and unleash their full strength. The perceptive Dao Palace cultivators also noticed something else. Recently, the Dao Palace had produced a new batch of high-quality, well-refined spirit artifacts. Almost all the Dao Palace cultivators had been given at least one. As a result, while the overall strength of the Holy Ji Palace had not increased by much, it had at least increased by 10%. Naturally, these spirit tools were all provided by Lu Yi. If you want a horse to run, you must feed it. The standard of weapon refinement in the Wuxia continent was not high. After all, the upper limit of a cultivator's cultivation was there. There were not many materials for weapon refinement, so what kind of good spirit weapon could they refine? However, things were different in the 9 prefectures. The quality of the spiritual weapons in the Tianji treasury was not something the Wuxia continent could compare with. Lu Yi had a huge inventory, so it would not be a problem for him to take out a batch and provide it to the Dao Palace. That day in the courtyard of the Spirit Peak, when he took out a huge number of spirit artifacts and handed them to Pang Huanin, not only was Pang Huanin dumbfounded, but the other people who came to the 9 provinces were also shocked. Pang Huanin didn't know what this large number of spiritual artifacts represented, but how could Lu Qing and the others not know? Each spiritual artifact represented the life of a cultivator from the Myriad Demons Ridge. Under the mountain of spiritual artifacts, there was a river of blood that could not be seen with the naked eye. Lu Ye, this guy, really killed people like flies. When Pang Huanin brought these spiritual artifacts back to Elder Xiao, the doubts in his heart were completely dispelled. Previously, when he heard from Pang Huanin that Lu Yi claimed to be from a realm called the 9 provinces, he did not dare to believe it because it was too unbelievable. However, if he was not from the 9 provinces, how could he have so many high-quality spiritual artifacts? It was impossible for the other 2 secret realms to have such a rich heritage. The entire Holy Ji Palace was preparing for a storm. Hua Si was busy refining spiritual pills, and many alchemy cultivators of the Holy Ji Palace were dispatched to assist her. Although she had the ability to neutralize the origin corpse poison, the battlefield would be extremely chaotic. As a medical cultivator, she did not have the ability to fight head-on, so it was impossible for her to go to war with the army. She had to stay behind with the medical cultivators of the Holy Ji Palace and wait to treat the wounded. In this way, she would not be able to neutralize the origin corpse poison immediately. Therefore, she had to refine a spiritual pill that could temporarily suppress the outbreak of the origin corpse poison. At the very least, it would have to last until the poisoned cultivator returned to seek medical treatment. Lu Yi and Ingwuji were also busy. In order to prepare for this war, the Holy Ji Palace had used all their resources. They even took out the 3 soaring dragon boats left behind by their ancestors. The soaring dragon boat was similar to the soaring dragon boat in the 9 prefectures. It was a sharp weapon that was specially used to attack cities. With the current level of refining weapons in the Wuxia continent, it was already impossible to refine such a large spiritual weapon. These 3 boats were left behind in the past and had been preserved by the Holy Ji Palace as their most precious treasures. Lu Yi and Ingwuji were both array cultivators. The 2 of them led a group of array cultivators from the Holy Ji Palace to inspect the various array formations on the soaring dragon boats. They either repaired or rearranged them. They also installed many killing weapons on the soaring dragon boats, making the 3 boats look ferocious. As for Lan Zi and the others, they also acted as temporary instructors. The Holy Ji Palace cultivators followed the instructors according to their factions and practiced killing techniques. Although they were pressed for time and might not be able to achieve much, they could still learn a little. Who knew, they might be able to save their lives on the battlefield. Everyone was busy, making preparations in full swing. Time flew by and the deadline for the war with the Corpse clan finally arrived. Cultivators gathered in front of the Holy Ji Palace's secret realm. There were not many of them, but there were not few either. There were about 10,000 of them. Pang Huanin stood in the void and spoke in a calm voice. She did not sound too impassioned or stirring up the hearts of the people. However, as soon as she finished speaking, a chorus of shouts shook the heavens and the earth. Fight! 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 The auras of the Holy Ji Palace cultivators seemed to have merged into one at this moment, causing the wind and clouds to change color. The unity of the people's hearts showed how cohesive the Holy Ji Palace was. It also showed Pang Huanin's position in the hearts of the Holy Ji Palace cultivators. Pang Huanin smiled, her eyes filled with gratification. She said softly, "Then follow me and fight the Corpse clan to the death." Kill! Kill! Pang Huanin turned around and looked at Lu Yi and the others who were waiting in front of the door. She reminded them in a serious voice, "Be careful." Lu Yi nodded. "Take good care of my junior sister." It was not appropriate for Hua Ci to follow them on this trip, so she could only stay behind and follow the Holy Ji Palace cultivators. "Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to her even if I die." Elder Xiao shouted, "Open the door." As the cultivators on duty did so, the door quickly opened. Lu Yi turned around and was the first to step into the door. Lan Zi, Lu Qing, and the others followed closely behind. As soon as he took a step, his vision changed and he appeared in the wilderness. When he looked back, the door had already closed and disappeared without a trace. Without needing any instructions, Ing Wuji had already hidden himself. The others also quickly became vigilant. Lu Yi looked up at the sun and identified the direction slightly. Then, he led the people behind him and rushed in a direction. After traveling for a short distance, he landed. From a nearby hiding place, 4 figures walked out one after another. The 2 in the lead were the brothers Feng Yun Qianli and Feng Yun Wanli, who led Lu Yi and Ing Wuji into the Ziwei Holy Ji Palace. The other 2 who were following closely behind the 2 of them were also tall and sturdy. When they walked over, it was as if they were 2 slanted iron mountains. Both of them were wearing very simple linen clothes. Their strong arms, thighs, and even chests were exposed. Their bulging muscles gave off a sense of explosive strength. "Greetings, Brother Feng Yun." Feng Yun Qianli stepped forward and cupped his fists. "Thank you." Lu Yi nodded slightly and looked at the 2 people behind them. Yang Yuan and Giant Armor. Before they went to Mount Meru, Lu Yi had made 2 conditions to Pang Huanin. One of them was to help him find his lost junior brothers and sisters. Pang Huanin naturally agreed. During this time, she had been paying attention to the whereabouts of others. Finally, 3 days ago, she found Yang Yuan and Giant Armor. They had been waiting here for today. Speaking of which, Yang Yuan and Giant Armor didn't mean to hide their whereabouts. They didn't even think about it. However, the Holy Ji Palace didn't have many people scattered outside, so it wasn't easy to find them. The 2 had been together since they came to the Wushuang continent. They were both body cultivators, so they had some common topics. Originally, the Holy Ji Palace looked down on Spirit Weapon because Emo Xian's cultivation was 1 level lower. However, after getting along with Spirit Weapon, he also recognized her ability. During this time, the 2 of them went on all kinds of expeditions. Wherever there were corpses, they would kill. No one knew how many corpses died in their hands. They also encountered many human strongholds that were hiding in the dark and had a hard time surviving. In the face of these humans' solicitation, the 2 of them agreed. If the Feng Yun brothers hadn't found them in time, they were even prepared to fight their way to the Heavenly Palace and find the Golden Corpse mummy. This was also the reason why the Feng Yun brothers waited here with the 2 of them. This place was not far from the Heavenly Palace's secret realm. When Giant Armor heard the news from the Palace Master Token that day, he was speechless for a long time. He could only sigh. Although the banter between the cultivators of the 9 states was a joke, now it seemed that there was a reason behind it. The number of body cultivators and the number 1 weapon cultivator had long been ingrained in people's hearts. After appearing, the people from the Holy Ji Palace and the myriad demon ridge bowed to each other. Emocian only nodded slightly, with a cold posture that kept strangers away. No need to pretend. They probably already know. Giant Armor leisurely glanced at Wuji. Previously, he wanted to hide his relationship with Hua Si and Emocian because he was afraid that the people from the myriad demon ridge wouldn't be on the same side as him and would target the 2 of them. However, in the current situation, no matter who it was, they could only cooperate sincerely. There was naturally no need to hide it. Ling Bao immediately flashed a silly smile at Giant Armor. His back molars were about to fall out. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.